One night, a boy is walking home from school when a big truck comes out of nowhere, hitting him. However, instead of facing death, he's transported into a whole new world. While he is in the said world, he decides to write a letter to his mom and dad. In the said letter, he stated that it had been a year since he, who had been living a normal and interesting life, came to the peculiar world. At first, he cried a lot and wanted to run away, but after seeing something that made him hopeful about returning back, he adapted to the new world. On the battlefield, where tons of people die, he tried to balance what his comrades did with justice, courage, and comradeship, which he didn't know when he was just a normal person. Although he knows his parents won't understand even if they tell them this, even just in his head, he tries to inform them that he has become stronger now, and that there are people who have become more reliant on him. Even if he has lost a lot, on the brighter side, he has also gained a lot, and that he has pulled through more than he has fallen apart. Since the end of his journey is already in sight, he finds it funny to write a letter that he can't even mail, but deep inside his head, he hopes his parents pray for him as he is now about to defeat the Demon King, so that he can return to his daily life and see his journey in the said world as a long dream or memory. That said, as his comrades call him, he immediately stops writing the letter, and with a fierce look on his face, Kim Min-soo, the boy's name, is now eager to return back home. After the intense battle, the people of the said kingdom cheer on Min-soo for killing the Demon King. As a result, he and his comrades decide to celebrate over dinner. And now that Min-soo has finally done his mission in the said world, he will need to bid farewell to his fellow comrades, whom he has been with for the past year. One even says that Min-soo pretty much has the choice to stay if he wants to. However, he himself has also missed his family and friends so much, that's why he has now finally decided to go home once and for all. The priestess has also cheered for Min-soo to have a gracious and blessed life. However, 3 weeks later in Seoul, as Min-soo arrives home, it seems like the priestess was wrong. Min-soo might have saved the world, but he couldn't save himself. It is shown that upon his arrival, he immediately went home to finally see his family after months of being gone. However, when the door opened, a new owner welcomed him. During the 8 months he was gone, his mother had died in a hit-and-run accident while handing out missing person flyers. After his mom's death, his father, who blamed himself for being unable to protect his family, also committed suicide. In the end, Min-soo's father's death became a newspaper headline, and his missing persons report was included at the end of the news story, which made him somehow known by many. Min-soo is then seen visiting his parents' graves, with overflowing tears flooding out of his eyes. The police have classified him as a missing teenager, and his school expelled him as well. He technically became that guy who didn't fit in with everyone. One of his friend's mother instructs her son not to meet with Min-soo anymore. No one really wanted to help him. Although he tried to mend everything back together, it seems like he has missed a lot that even his other relatives started to abandon him. He became a child who was considered a nuisance to his parents. His uncle blamed him for the death of his father. At this point, no one in Min-soo's family would want to take him in. His cousin even instructed him to leave immediately if he didn't want to be treated this certain way, since they also blamed Min-soo for being the reason why their family had gone bankrupt. That said, Min-soo has no place to stay and no food to eat. Without any other choice, he starts to sleep on benches on sidewalks. Min-soo's family was just average, so they didn't have any money left. However, it wasn't just money Min-soo didn't have. He had no family, no degree, and no social life. In short, there was no him. He starts to question whether everything happening is just an awful nightmare, and after a while, everything will go back to normal. At the back of his mind, back in the other world, he had saved everyone from destruction. He had saved the lives of many people. And when the moment they needed him the most, he was there. He risked his life just to come back home, but why was he deserted? Thinking this made Min-soo tear up. Then he accidentally bumps into a bulky man on the street. Although the man didn't intend to beat the hell out of Min-soo, considering he already looked like a loser. However, when Min-soo questions why they are not sad, this releases the demon inside the once hero. Now, Min-soo aims to make everyone feel the same way as he does right now. He will not stop unless everyone around him becomes sad such as he is now. When the bulky man is about to punch him, Min-soo calls on his Sword of Durant, and in a split second, the man is butchered to pieces. While wiping his tears, Min-soo will ensure that as a hero, he should be the last person who's sad and should be rewarded. That said, as he swings his majestic sword, the hero who once saved the world evaporates the region of Kangso without giving any second thought, killing thousands of innocent people. 3 weeks after the hero's rampage on the outskirts of Gyeonggi province, everyone has thought about the world going extinct at least once, whether a nuclear war, natural disaster, or zombie apocalypse caused it. One family decides to flee the province for safety precautions. However, the little girl is saddened that they left their father behind. However, her young, or older brother, assures her that their dad will meet them once they get to their destination. However, that assurance will slowly fade as one of the officers announces that Minsu, or now the hero, is on his trail and has come extremely close to the people. That said, they don't have much time to spare, meaning they must now continue traveling by foot. As everyone leaves their vehicles and starts to walk, a few minutes later, the worst fear has finally come. Minsu crushes the officer's body to death, making everyone panicked as hell. The world now will meet its end, not by demon or villain, but because of a hero. Everyone is now running as fast as they can in hopes of saving their lives, including the family we saw earlier. Tabin, the little girl's name, starts to feel exhausted with all the running. That's why her young decides to carry her. Meanwhile, seeing the gruesome view from above the overpass, Minsu starts calling the people disgusting as they struggle in hopes that they will get away alive. That's why he'll now kill them in a flash. As everyone rushes to save their lives, Tabin's doll accidentally slips off her hand. As a result, her young rushes to get it back. As he bends down to get the doll, with one swing of his sword, Minsu annihilates everyone else. That's why when Tabin's brother starts to look for her and their mom, all that he witnesses is a devastating pool of blood and guts everywhere. As he cries for his loss, Minsu watches him from behind. Minsu commends him for his beautiful eyes. Then the boy asks him if he is the said hero that everyone is talking about. Instead of answering, Minsu confuses the boy even more when he states that those teary eyes belong to someone who has lost everything, and that they look just like his eyes without hopes and dreams. However, irritated and frustrated, the boy shouts as he asks Minsu the same question again, and when Minsu stated yes, the boy gets up, and with no fear, he declares that he will kill Minsu no matter what. As he rushes towards him, Minsu grabs him by the throat. As the boy's tears flood from his eyes, Minsu stabs him with the sword. The boy starts to wonder whether he is really going to die without being able to do anything. He says his apologies to his sister, mother, father, and grandma as his eyes start to close. Then, a little girl's voice is heard saying, "Hero, hero, hero." When the boy came to, he had become a hero all of a sudden. 1 year later, the government fell apart. Just like Kim Min-soo, people who went missing during the same period returned as heroes. The 9 heroes who conquered the lands split the land amongst themselves, except for Min-soo's Sor. This was how the world came to be as it is today. At Jeju Island territory of the Golem hero, people who are frightened for their lives are scared to jinx their death. One girl wants to be killed all at once, while the other wants to live still. Then a walking alive piece of the hand starts ordering the girls to wake up since it's time to work. As they rush to do their jobs, a man named Sung Hoo-chun, the hero of Golems, shows up. He announces what the group's agenda for the day is. Women are assigned to gather food, while men will work on construction. However, obviously, people are not delighted to do such tasks. That's why Woo-jun tries to convince them that if they were in the territories of the vampires or the faith heroes, they would have become blood sacks, crazy religious people, or experiments. Now, as Woo-jun starts to think that he might have been too nice to the people, with a single flick of his hand, everyone runs for their lives. However, some were not as lucky as they met their deaths. At this point, Woo-jun threatens everyone that they should go to work right at once. That said, at the farm, the girl from earlier who wishes she was dead is named So-min. A grandma tells her to eat some tangerines and breathe some air. As she is watching the ocean waves, the guilt of seeing her friend from earlier dying starts eating her up. Then, a soldier came out of nowhere, trying to ask for food for his comrades, promising that as soon as they get their energy back up, the military will fight the heroes once more. So-min decides to rebel and get them food. However, as she reaches the shore, the only thing that welcomes her is the soldier's dead body and Woo-jun. Now that she's caught, her guts turn upside down as fear starts to kill her. It will not take long before she meets her death. Woo-jun then reveals that he doesn't only have one eye that watches everyone, but thousands are hidden above the clouds. At this point, he's just technically playing with these poor people's lives. As she is now about to face her death, So-min calls for help. It doesn't matter who. That said, a luminous figure rushes and comes crashing down from the sky. This made Woo-jun shocked as well. And just like that, Jung-soo Park, the real hero, returned. Soo Park then asks So-min to explain the situation to him. After hearing that Woo-jun is one of the Sword Heroes group, Soo Park can't contain his emotions anymore as he rushes to smash every golem who comes his way. When he finally reaches Woo-jun, Soo Park starts cutting off the Devil Hero's limbs one by one if he'll not answer any of Soo Park's questions. So when Woo-jun finally sees an opening, he calls for his golems to take him back to safety. Then, a flashback occurs. It turns out what happened to Min-soo has also happened to Woo-jun. Everyone in his life has abandoned him and left him alone to leave. And as revenge, he now aims to make everyone suffer and live a life where everyone obeys him. However, Soo Park wouldn't allow that. as the two fight once more, in which Woojun uses a technique called the praying flower, while Supark uses the applied element electricity to enhance his spear's attacks. The fight continues to intensify. As the god, the lightning strikes spears through Woojun's heart, marking the final moment the golem hero who destroyed Jeju Island and the UN naval fleet. Meanwhile, back in the other world, the people that Woojun once helped before he turned wicked is seen praying for his happiness. Little did they know, the total opposite had happened. The golem hero has died, and with his death, the golems that controlled the castle from within also fell with him, meaning that it is his first time this island is at peace since the hero's rampage. That said, the people are delighted to hear the wonderful news, while behind the trees lurks Supark. He is happy to see families getting back together. However, as he remembers those happy moments that he shared with his own family once, it makes him envy those people. Then, a subtle rattling sound makes Supark alert a bit. It turns out that it is just Somin. Supark then asks her why she's hiding in the bushes. Somin then immediately explains that everyone wants to know who slain the golem hero, and that she just wants him to head down with her. However, Supark then abruptly says that a hero who killed a hero has no merit. It will just revive the people's fear instead. He then added that he doesn't care about getting praised by many since the beginning. This made Somin somehow smile due to how moved she was by Supark's kindness, since he would not think about other people's feelings if he is not. Hearing every statement, Supark tells Somin that she is free to think whatever she wants since they're never going to see each other again in the future. However, Somin didn't stop there. She even added a few more questions for Supark to answer. She asks whether Supark plans to kill all the heroes. Supark, on the other side, immediately answers yes. He's going to kill everyone who's working with the sword hero. When Somin asks if it is because of revenge, Supark has also answered the question indirectly by stating that there is no other reason. That said, as the girl hears this, she immediately volunteers to help since she also wants to take her revenge too. But that didn't immediately convince Supark. Somin, on the other hand, stays persistent. Although she knows that in the eyes of Supark, she is just a deadweight, she begs him to let her join. She even tried to tell Supark that she'll take him all around the city to the said heroes. Little did she know that Supark had seen everything on his way from Seoul to Jeju. Supark somewhat has an idea of which area is controlled by which hero and what kind of abilities they have. Hearing this didn't stop her from what she aimed for. This time, she even tells Supark that she'll do everything, that she can provide him with everything that he needs, from transportation to food or shelter, as long as he agrees to be her guide. That said, Supark then asks her what her reasons are. She then explains that the sorrow from the loss of her family, the anger towards those evil heroes, and the solicitude towards the old world are what drives her. And since she doesn't have the power to conquer all of this, she needs someone like Supark to guide her at all times. That said, while everyone is enjoying their long-lost freedom, the two that brought them their freedom had just started a new contract. Now that they've already joined forces, Somin helps Supark to choose who's next on his target list. And since Supark wants an opponent that is easy to kill, Somin can't think of anything other than the Sea Dragon hero. Having destroyed an entire fleet in the Pacific Ocean, she's the worst hero of the ocean. She's killed countless people, including Somin's family. And to be able to fight her, Supark needs to find a boat. Fortunately, Somin knows someone that could help them, and it's none other than the Fighting Marines. At the southern coastal sea where big waves and strong winds occur, the sea hero lives. It is seen that she assures her pet that any opponent trying to get to her will never go home alive. Back at Jeju Island, one of the Marines is seen talking. One states that he can't seem to comprehend how going into the hero's lair is the right decision. Fearing that he'll go back to the hands of Minsu terrifies him. However, his captain assures him that if Supark killed Woojun in an instant, that simply means that he also plans to kill all of the other heroes. Although they don't know and are not sure of the latter, but isn't that enough? The captain states that for more than a year, the men whom he treated as if they were sons died, and if he were to meet them after he died, he would want to be able to speak with confidence. Even after they all left, the others left alive found a way to make use of the bodies that they saved to make sure their death won't go in vain. That's right, in vain. And in cases where Supark is stronger than Minsu, this voyage and their sacrifice will become the beginning of this nation's freedom. That said, they all now decided to go on with the plan. As they were already traveling the sea, Somin showed Supark what the Sea Dragon hero looked like. And her drawing is just too cute, gosh. Supark, confused, asks if his opponent is a worm and a stick figure. This made Somin embarrassed by her cute drawing. Anyways, it turns out that both the hero and the dragon are girls, and that's the critical difference they have with other dragons. The girl is always standing on top of the dragon, and the dragon never moves unless the girl orders it to. From how Somin sees it, the girl who's riding on its head is the brains, and the dragon is the brawn. Supark then asks for their attack patterns. Based on the fights between them and the soldiers who are assisting refugees, the dragon either breathes fire or knocks over ships while the girl blocks an attack coming their way. That said, the two are technically both attack and defense, and Supark states it'll be hard to deal with. Then, before Somin and Supark continue with their discussion, the Marines are able to detect an unidentified object on their radar, making everyone alerted. To make it worse, there are many unidentified objects lurking below them. It's not just 2 or 3, but 400. As it gets closer and closer, everyone braces for impact. It turns out that it's just fish. But after a few seconds, the real deal shows up, making a big whirlpool that almost sucked the ship up to the bottom of the ocean. The sea dragon hero, Swashin, then declares that Supark will pay for killing Wujun since she will blow up the entire ship. Hearing this made the Marines stay alert and ask Supark for orders. Supark then orders for the Marines to lower the anchor instead of dodging the evil hero's attacks. Although at first the Marines are confused by Supark's decision, the captain trusts Supark with all his might and follows as he says. As the anchors are lowered, the fight has begun. The dragon starts to breathe out its fire while the Marines are preparing their weapons and shields. Supark also tries to condition himself and his spear. That said, Ansile, activate. As the fire breath almost reaches the ship, Supark blocks it with his magical shield. Seeing Supark protecting them from the attacks instead of fighting surprises the Marines. That's why they decided to ask their captain to give them distraction orders. Asking all the crew members to prepare for battle, they aim for the heads. However, using Espita tu Tiada, the shield of Atlas, Swashin uses her shielding power to ensure that none of the attacks from the Marines reaches them. Seeing this made the Marines somehow discouraged, but their captain says not to. Since they already know the fact that their firearms are useless against the heroes, the ultimate objective is to distract the opponents as much as they can. That said, they keep on attacking non-stop. As the fight continues, Supark discovers something crucial. Since Swashin started to use the magical barrier, the dragon's fire powers were decreased. And if his assumptions are correct, the sea hero is sharing her mana with the sea dragon. That's why if they focus on depleting her mana, they may have a chance of winning. Supark then pushes forward with all his might. Seeing this made Swashin realize that Supark might have noticed that the sea dragon had been using her mana. That said, instead of panicking, all she needed to do is get rid of any reason to use the magical barrier. Dori Atiada, the spear of the Atlas. As the spear travels from Swashin's hands to the ship, Supark doesn't anticipate that her attacks will change directions. Now she's technically aiming for the Marines and the ship. As everyone tries to run from every direction, trying to escape their death, some are just unlucky to meet their tragic fate so early. That said, thinking that she'll win the fight, she states to Supark that this is the end for him. However, as one of the Marines dies from the spear of the Atlas, he makes use of his body to stick the spear in and lets Supark get rid of it. As the poor Marine thinks of his past and the conversation he had with their captain before going into the mission, with a smile on his face, he tells Supark to make good use of the spear of the Atlas. Supark then thanks him for his cooperation and drive to save the country from the filthy hands of the evil heroes. Then, Supark uses his Apply Element Glaciation to take care of the said sea hero's powerful weapons. In what seems like heaven, the fallen Marines are then seen getting back together with big smiles on their faces. At least throughout the time that the world needed them the most, they didn't run but instead stood still with their head high up, doing their best for their duty. Then a flashback occurs. In the calm city deep in the blue sea, hundreds and thousands of underwater species swim and live freely. The place is called Atlas, the world of sea dragons. This wonderful place is where Swashin was taken when she went missing. As she arrived at the said water kingdom, she was welcomed warmly by the people there. As a hero, she was treated with much respect. A Greek god-looking guy, who I think is the sea dragon, then enters the scene, stating that Swashin is much calmer now compared to her first visit. He then stated that Swashin must have heard about the only way she could return home, and that is to do all the responsibilities of being a hero. However, Swashin honestly says that she is still not accustomed to the idea. Honestly, she looks much more innocent here. It's such a shame how rage can change somehow. Anyways, going back, the blue-haired guy then assures her that she will eventually get used to it over time. He then gives Swashin something. Curious about what it is, the blue-haired guy then shows a spear that is said to have been passed through many generations. It was passed on to the Chosen One to become the hero of the sea dragons, and Swashin is the said Chosen One. Bearing the spear is of great significance, which means that Swashin will become a hero and is obligated to protect the kingdom, especially the sea dragon. That said, in exchange, the sea dragon will also protect her from all that stands in the way of her destroying the Demon King. Now going back to the present, the fight then continues. As Swashin thinks, the memories of her and the spear that is now at the hands of Supark makes her frustrated. She then shouts at him saying that the spear is not some random spear a man can handle. "Return it at once," she says. Supark then states that he'll definitely return the spear back into her empty skull. Supark then uses one of his skills, the frozen spear technique, the Glacial Path, which somehow worked on the said monster. As Swashin tries to shield the dragon with her Gigantiae Espita tu Tiada skill, the 5-tier magical defense barrier even the pterodactyl Demon King couldn't pierce. She is shocked that Supark is able to destroy it without even trying. That said, Supark uses his powerful igniting spear to slice open the majestic sea dragon together with the evil hero, Swashin, killing them in an instant. On the brighter side, The two villains, who have loved each other since, have stayed with one another even upon their deaths. It turns out that the sea dragon and Swashin have been involved in a much more romantic relationship than we may have thought. As the sea dragon decided to come with Swashin after they defeated the Demon King, his body didn't get accustomed to the human world, causing his human body to transform back to its dragon form. As the couple opted to live on an island where no one else could see them, the sea dragon couldn't contain it anymore. That's why, while they were at a ferry, he transformed into his dragon form. After the Southern Sea Ferry incident, the government ruled them as terrorists like Minsu. That's how they became villains and objects of conquest. Now till the end, they have loved each other, protected one another, and have died painfully together. Meanwhile, in the city, Minsu is then informed by a guy that the hero of golems and sea dragons has died at the hands of the new hero, which means that the people have a new hope. It also means that the eternal sadness Minsu created is about to end. That said, the guy tells Minsu to get up and do something about it, which Minsu does, marking the end is approaching once again. On the other world where Supark was taken, the girl who welcomed him to the world realizes that Supark has already started his revenge. That said, to repay their debt to Supark, she orders one knight to call all the blacksmiths as they must mend as many spears as possible. The girl then sadly reminisced how Supark wasn't really interested in saving their world, and out of all the generations of heroes of spears, Supark pushed himself the hardest. During his time in the other world, he trains day and night in hopes that when he comes back to the real world, he'll be able to exact revenge on the evil heroes who killed his family. He blames his weakness for the death of his family. That's why, instead of contemplating so much, he fulfilled his duties without any questioning or faltering into silence. One day, with only the use of his spear, he slashes each of the goblins' limbs one by one. He's so eager to make himself stronger that even his comrades are scared that he's going in too deep. And they were right. One giant goblin hits the back of his head with a large bat. However, just by remembering Minsu, the rage inside him ignites once more. As a result, the poor goblins meet their death in a flash. "Just die. Just die," he says while stabbing the giant goblin's jugular vein. But even with this victory, he still hallucinates the images of his dead family members. That's why instead of a hero, he acted like a sinner or a revenge spirit. One night, after a long intense fight, the girl offers to help Supark by putting on some ointment on his wounds. She then respectfully asks why Supark eagerly wants to kill the Demon King and return back home if he hasn't had any family yet. Supark then explains that he wants to kill someone stronger than him when he returns. The girl couldn't possibly believe that someone was stronger than Supark. She also reminds him that even if he gets his revenge, abusing his body is just wrong. However, Supark knows that Minsu is indeed stronger than him in any way possible. That's why his goal is to become stronger than him and tear Minsu limb by limb. He already has come up with some gruesome ways to torture Minsu, like slashing through his skin daily, like sashimi, then feed Minsu with his own skin. Supark will make him suffer for all those people he has killed as slowly and painfully as possible. Hearing this made the girl realize that Supark was seriously twisted up inside. On the day that Supark had already defeated the Demon King, everyone was shocked when he used the Elixir of Miracles to bring the Demon King's energy back up. He did this to fight the Demon King once again in order for him to gain more strength. As this keeps going on, even the Demon King begs Supark to kill him once and for all already. His comrades, especially the girl, ask him to stay humane and don't cross the line further down than he already has. That said, inside the girl's mind, as she remembers all of these, she wishes that even after Supark completes his revenge, she hopes that he'll not become a monster. Back in the real world, Supark's thoughts are filled with Minsu's image. In his head, Minsu tells him that he is not a savior or the hero of the story. He is just someone who's nothing to the people. However, these thoughts don't matter to Supark, as he is more than satisfied by just being Minsu's murderer. After defeating Swashin, Supark goes back to the deck and asks Somin if there are any survivors. Unfortunately, it seems like all of the ship's passengers are already dead except for Somin. Without the soldiers, they can't possibly go back to the shore without anyone manipulating the ship. Somin then asks if Supark can make anything that will navigate their way back to the shore. However, it seems like Somin's statement kind of irritated Supark a little bit. He even bluntly says that if Somin claims to be a guide, shouldn't she know how to steer a ship at least? Somin then tries to explain. However, as Supark is about to leave, he then tells her that he thought she'd be competent. That's why he decided to bring her. Before he even leaves her sight, Somin asks Supark what she should do. Supark simply responds that she just needs to take a break. And let's just say she took it personally. That's why instead of taking a literal break, she tries to find the ship's manual in hopes that she'll be able to steer the ship on her own. This way, she will be able to prove herself to Supark. Then, it seems like someone is out in the hallway as Somin hears someone walking. As she checks up on it, she thinks that Supark has already fallen asleep. She's quite shocked to see that Supark is carrying dead bodies in the middle of the night. It turns out that Supark is giving a respectful funeral for the fallen soldiers, as they remind him of his father, who is also a member of the Navy. Soopark then tells them sorry since he wasn't able to send them back to their family and for having to send them off like this. As tears start to fall down, Soopark continues to say he's sorry. He then tells his prayers to the fallen, and Somin also says hers in secret. In a world where both life and death are becoming vague, the boy and girl pay their respects to those who had passed before them, and as if this cruel world were admiring them, they sent a guest from the heavens. A helicopter with the South Korean Reconstruction Government team leader of the Heroes Division, Choi Jung-wook, then comes to fetch the hero of revolt, which is none other than Soopark. That said, the operation of saving the world has commenced. As Mr. Choi introduces himself, Somin then tells Soopark something about the organization that Mr. Choi is in. It is said that they are an organization formed by government officials and soldiers that aim to revolt against the heroes through their guerrillas. Hearing this made Soopark realize that the organization might have wanted him to be a part of their tactics. As he and Somin finally enter the helicopter, Soopark immediately asks Mr. Choi if their organization seriously thinks that guns would work on a hero. Then from there, a heated conversation started, to the point that Mr. Choi almost blew up the whole helicopter. That said, Mr. Choi plans on taking them somewhere. As they reach their destination, with Somin and Soopark's hands tied up and eyes blindfolded, the organization is planning to interrogate them first. Then a drone is seen flying over the secret hiding place. Behind the screen, someone states that he has finally found the damn rats. As they enter the building, Soopark tries to analyze the surroundings. He is then able to compute that it will only take 3 seconds for him to take down all the soldiers with them now. As he starts to get annoyed, he thinks that escaping might be a good plan. He then stops making the soldiers alert immediately. Before Soopark can go all in, Somin stops him and tries to remind him that the soldiers are just scared and will definitely harbor no ill intentions. She also explains that the organization and him have common enemies, and that's why he should make them trust him as much as possible. As Somin enters the interrogation room first, Mr. Choi immediately asks her what type of person Soopark is. She then explained every detail perfectly, from one point to another. She tells Mr. Choi that Soopark is a good guy and has the same objective as the organization. That's why it's a good thing if the two will join forces to defeat the other evil monsters. Hearing all of this made Mr. Choi realize that Soopark might have been doing all of this for revenge. However, having the same objective doesn't mean they'll be instant allies. Mr. Choi then asks Somin if she herself trusts Soopark fully. Does she know what Soopark will do after the revenge? Although Soopark could become the hope of all survivors, the risk is too significant in order to trust and assist him since they still don't know whether he is stronger than the sword hero or if he is just a trap for the government. It would be much more logical for the government to kill him while they still have him restrained or at least imprison him before he can create havoc. 3 days later, it's Soopark's time to get interrogated. Before the discussion starts, Soopark remembers what Somin told him the other day, that the government is just scared and he needs to get them to trust him. Looking so pale, to dismiss them as being scared, it seems like they have been trying to starve him to death since they aren't giving him anything to eat or drink. Although, even if Soopark's body won't die from starvation, it still seems like he has been robbed of some privilege. After hearing some gunshots, Somin then removes Soopark's blindfolds and handcuffs. But then there's more. A big bulky man with white hair is with her, making Soopark confused. Turns out this guy is the hero of Iron Arm, and he's there to rescue Soopark. However, it seems like Soopark is not buying it. As he calls for a spear and is about to fight the Iron Arm hero, Somin tries to stop him. However, before she can even stop him, it seems like Soopark is angry at Somin for easily trusting someone like the Iron Arm hero. It seems like Somin is already blinded by the rage and revenge that she wants to take on other heroes. Soopark never doubted the fact that Somin had the same objective as he does. That's why he trusted her so much. That said, Soopark lets go of Somin as he tells her to go away before she meets her death. Then, out of nowhere, Mr. Choi comes out, telling Soopark he has passed. Turns out that everything was just a play organized by Mr. Choi and Somin to check and find out if Soopark is indeed a hero that will save humanity, and not just someone who will use the organization for his schemes. They have also cast someone that looks like the hero of Iron Arm to play the role so that it looks believable. It seems like the organization is also prepared with the plan B in case Soopark did really betray them. That said, as he is now part of the organization, Soopark and Somin are taken into a small underground city that caters to 50,000 residents. They went down through an elevator. When they finally reach the underground city, Mr. Choi tells Soopark that he hopes he will really not let down the people who have been looking up to him now. That said, without anyone to protect other than the people, Soopark is now dedicated to doing everything he can to make sure everyone will be safe from now on. Although at first, Soopark intended not to stay in the underground city for long, Mr. Choi and Somin eventually persuaded him. That said, as everyone is celebrating the idea that it is only a matter of time before they go back to their old lives, a pitch black incident comes their way. All the other 7 heroes who are alive come crashing into the peaceful city. From the hero of the vampire, Hong Hwa-rang, Hero of Faith, Baek-hana, Hero of Magic, Ma Yerin, Jong Eui-ho, Hero of Return, Lee Sung-jun, Hero of Martial Arts, Chon Ji-sung, Hero of Reformation, Lee Ga-ram, and of course, the Hero of Swords, Min-soo. The fight then starts. Mr. Choi then tries to go based on their trained operation. However, his people are now hypnotized by Baek-hana. That said, he tries to contact his other men to protect Soo-park at all costs. However, even the soldiers didn't escape the gruesome death that the heroes gave upon them. Chon Mountainside, annihilated. Hwanbat, annihilated. Brown Crow, annihilated. In total, 13,700 people are dead already within just 3 minutes and 17 seconds. And the once peaceful city is now at the hands of the heroes once more. Now, it's up to Soo-park to defeat them all and protect the people. Are you the bastard? Min-soo asks Soo-park, emotionless. While on the other side, Soo-park is already in a rage just seeing Min-soo's face, as he thinks that the bastard who killed his family is standing right before his eyes. The anger inside him is slowly overflowing. Without a second thought, as he initially planned, Soo-park now fully decided that he would kill Min-soo once and for all. He calls all of the magical spears that he has, from the magical shield spear Ansile to the ice spear Vasnez. Meanwhile, Min-soo is also seen preparing his gears, the holy demon attack system for the fight. As Min-soo and Soo-park start to fight, even the other evil heroes stop interfering because they are scared to get involved. When Soo-park already almost got Min-soo right in his palms, Min-soo saw some hint of hope in Soo-park's eyes, which caused him to burst out of rage, making Soo-park almost die once more. That said, thinking of it makes Soo-park so angry. That's why, looking above the sky, he utters the words that he will surely kill Min-soo no matter what. While on the other hand, Min-soo is also struggling with all the fighting. As their willpower to fight starts to kick in, their fight is about to get more intense than ever. As the armor of the two emerges, their fight with each other starts to get more intense. One hit after another, both of them are struggling to cope with each other's strength. Meanwhile, on the sides of the rubble, the citizens of the city watch the scene. The hero of sword, Kim Min-soo, whose very presence meant the opponent's imminent end, was struggling. One man was fighting off sorrow with his entire being. Seeing this made everyone have hope that maybe this time, they'll be able to win against evil. Mr. Choi then states that their last resort is fighting the battle of a lifetime against the hero of sword. That said, he orders his men to distract the other heroes as much as possible, giving Soo-park some time to fight against the hero of sword without thinking of the other heroes that might attack him from behind. The weak have decided to fight again. With all rage and eagerness in their eyes, Mr. Choi, together with his men, is able to encounter a weird-looking monster. However, instead of getting scared, they face the monster head-on. On the other hand, the hero of Iron Arm is seen finishing killing all the people in the area. He himself has also taken notice that it's taking longer than he had initially thought. As he tried to step in, one of the soldiers bravely tried to stop him. However, the poor soldier's life eventually meets his death afterward. The other heroes are also doing their own schemes to have the last laugh in the end, hopefully. However, what's truly nerve-wracking and something that everyone is anticipating is the fight between Min-soo and Soo-park. Who will win and have the victory? As Min-soo punches Soo-park with a powerful blow, Min-soo doesn't anticipate that Soo-park will be able to find an opening to attack him as well. Using the dragon spear and spirit, Soo-park rushes toward Min-soo in hopes that he will finally end his year-long nightmare at that time. Apply elements, electricity, ice, the great earth, flame, atmosphere, power, explosion. As Soo-park tries his best to give his all, Min-soo commends him for being strong, which is a first. However, of course, Min-soo wouldn't allow Soo-park to have the last laugh in the end. He then tries to rush all the power inside his sword, Durant. Daybreak mode. With just one slash of his sword, Soo-park's hands slice off instantly. Min-soo then states that Soo-park's sorrow is too shallow, and that no matter what angle you look at it, evil couldn't possibly defeat evil. Shallow? Soo-park asks. Then he eventually keeps on saying that the feeling of having his life trampled upon by a murderer like Min-soo has never been shallow. As his rage keeps on flowing rapidly, the citizens together with the other heroes are also watching the fight, slowly waiting for who will win. As Soo-park rushes towards Min-soo, as he's about to punch and attack Min-soo, it seems like Min-soo is just strong enough that he is able to dodge it. After doing so, Min-soo states that Soo-park is much less unfortunate than he is. Min-soo then punches him, stating that he has the chance. Soo-park can reach salvation, unlike him. Soo-park then bluntly asks him what wrong did the people ever do to Min-soo, and that he has more hatred towards them than anyone could imagine. Min-soo then honestly answered, it was all because they were all happier than he was. That all has eliminated him and none wanted him. No one ever tried to understand or embrace him when he needed it the most. Min-soo added that people dared to raise Soo-park as a beacon of hope and tried to break the cycle of sorrow that Min-soo made. However, Min-soo wouldn't allow that easily. Then, So-min bravely steps in to somehow help Soo-park in some ways. While crying, she then states that Min-soo is right. Soo-park is the last hope of humanity. That said, Min-soo now has diverted his attention to So-min. We all know that guns don't really affect the heroes. However, for So-min, as long as they keep fighting back and reporting like today, someday they will defeat the likes of Min-soo. Mr. Choi, with one arm missing, speaks through the speakers to talk to his people. He asks them, the survivors, and anyone capable of helping to protect Soo-park, since he is the last hope that humanity has. Mr. Choi had done his part and was able to fulfill his duties. In the end, he blows himself up. On the other hand, it seems like there are also some conflicts between the heroes themselves, considering that the hero of magic is trying to cast an attack spell on Min-soo. Then, a flashback occurs. It shows that the hero of magic was once a good normal daughter and student who lived a relatively normal life. Then, one day, as she is on her way home, a refrigerator accidentally fell on her, causing her to be transported to another world. Now, as she returns back home from the other world, she never intended to kill people. All that she wants is to be with her family once again. However, after seeing that great evil has already burned the place down, she was shocked at first. The heroes facing the situation were given two choices: to fight for their lives or to join the craziness. And she, who had no courage or any sort of bravado, ran away from both of the choices. She has also spent some time in the refugee camp with her mother and sister. Then, a group of soldiers came into the scene, wanting to speak with her. For as long as she can remember, she has tried to hide her identity as a hero. However, it seems like Mr. Choi has his ways of finding out crucial information like this. At first, Yaedin tries to deny it. However, when Mr. Choi starts to state some information that leads to knowing that Yaedin is a hero, she doesn't have a choice but to eventually give in, especially about 10 days ago. Due to the United Force misfire, the refugees in the area were going to be butchered like cattle. At that moment, an unknown identity assumed to be a hero disengaged the explosive only to disappear, and then Yaedin emerged from the building that person disappeared to. It may be just a mere coincidence. However, Mr. Choi doesn't believe that in any way possible. Then, Mr. Choi, who is already at his limit, shows his gun to fire at Yaedin. Without any choice, Yaedin shows off her true identity to save herself from death. And just like that, Mr. Choi was able to make Yaedin confess without really doing so. As they are having a conversation, Yaedin opens up that Mr. Choi might have been wondering why she isn't fighting with the heroes just like the others. Yaedin then states that there exists a clear difference in strength between the heroes. As far as she is concerned, a hero becomes the slightest bit stronger than the Demon King they defeat. So the Demon King's strength means the level of strength for the hero. The Demon King that Kim Min-soo defeated is stronger than the one that she defeated. All of the heroes that had fought against him died, and the Demon Kings he fought were all defeated. In short, this is a fight that started off with an unfair advantage on his end. Then Mr. Choi bluntly asks, that's why she chooses to run away? When Mr. Choi asks Yaedin if she's okay with the fact that the world will be destroyed, with a sad look on her face, Yaedin also has her reasons. She stated that after they had escaped, her mother had become ill and her sister cried every night because she's been separated from her friends. But most of all, even though she wanted to fight back, she didn't want to die. After all, in this whole mess, who else would protect her family other than her? It doesn't mean that she is a hero. She already has the courage and strength to fight. Lighting his cigar, Mr. Choi then bluntly says that Yaedin should join Kim Min-soo's forces. As long as she plays it off like she just returned and exploded them, it's a way to prove that she's evil. This way the government will know the insights of the evil group. Mr. Choi then gives her the location of an unimportant military base. Yaedin needs to destroy this place in order to get Min-soo's group's attention. Mr. Choi isn't telling her to do this for free. In exchange, the government will evacuate their family to international waters. They will also assign guards to protect them and treat her mother's illness as well. At this point, Yaedin couldn't ask for more. A little nervous, Mr. Choi tells Yaedin that there is no need to rush. He's only asking her to be their hidden card to know what method will be used to destroy Min-soo. Yaedin will be their trump card that will protect that method when the time comes. That's why, when Soo-park is already on the verge of falling, Yaedin now steps in to fulfill her duties. On the other hand, Soo-park then remembers the day he has spent to become stronger for the revenge he'll exact for his dead family. Seeing himself lying still on the ground frustrates him. He used everything he could use to fight, but he still couldn't defeat Min-soo. He despairs of the thought that with all that training, all that he could do to Min-soo is merely wound him. As he is about to give up, Yaedin then rushes to save him. Seeing Yaedin and Soo-park rushing to escape, the other evil heroes try to catch them. As Yaedin rushes, some of the evil heroes are able to catch up to them. However, with the help of some soldiers who tell Soo-park he must live, they are able to get away on time. The heroes could not understand. The fact that the humans who are so deathly afraid of fighting were now diving headfirst into their deaths as if they'd forgotten what fear was. Everyone, from civilians to the military, everyone is fighting for Supark. They were all risking their own lives for a mere moment. I hope that wasn't even certain. No matter how much strength the evil heroes have, the citizens now fully decide that they will never give up till the end. As the hero of Iron Arms punches one bus after another, on the last one that he punches, dozens of bombs are attached, exploding as it reaches the hero's hands. The great sacrifice of the people opens up an escape route for Supark and Yedin. The hero of the vampire, Hwarang, catches up to them. Using his blood, Hwarang makes a literal blood arrow to target Yedin and Supark. Yedin knows that getting out of the place isn't going to be easy since the place they first got through to come down there is where Minsu and Baekhanna are holding their own, and the gaps in the ceiling are too dangerous to go through because of the falling debris. Before she can even think of a plan for how to get out, Hwarang's blood arrow reaches her and strikes her. She realizes that going in circles is going to get them caught. Then, a man waves right at them, signaling that there's a place where they can hide, but Hwarang wouldn't let that happen. He rushes towards them as fast as he can before the two even get away. Meanwhile, at the main entrance, the remaining citizens and soldiers are trying to evacuate in an organized manner. However, such havoc couldn't let the citizens stay at ease. But the government is also trying its best to save the people as much as it can. They are trying to get the hero of magic in a certain place as soon as they can for the people to escape to the ground, away from the other heroes. However, if they use the elevator passage as an exit, refugees' reactions would be a problem. Since if the government pressures them toward death, a riot may occur, which could turn into the worst case scenario. However, the one in charge states that she will ensure everything is regulated. As she gets the speaker, she informs everyone that the last elevator capable of operating would be used to provide the hero of revolt, aka Supark, an escape route. Hearing this made people angry. I mean, who wouldn't? This is bullshit, some say as they realize that in the eyes of the government, they're just mere no-ones that don't deserve to live. The lady then explains in the most motivational way possible that even if they escape the underground city, it is still uncertain that they will live a peaceful, happy life, knowing that the hero of the sword is still alive. That's why Supark is their future, a man that would save the world. That said, many men who initially intended to escape the wrath happening below take pride as they give their space in the elevator to the young and will now take part in the fight. The last 3,000 people in the shelter gave up their lives to earn 5 minutes. On a deserted island in Indonesia, the lives of 50,000 people were sacrificed for a single person. Hopefully, their sacrifice was not in vain. Meanwhile, at the White House, all the US high-ranking personnel are discovering what has happened to the shelter they helped build in Korea. However, they should be disappointed on their own, considering the shelter is easily destroyed, indicating that their system designs are also lagging. Then, one of the personnel opens the topic about Supark, which everyone in the room is quite shocked about. As a result, the president immediately asks for Supark's location. Now back at Supark, a green-haired girl who has magical powers revives both Supark and Yedin. This said, the event made Supark question her as to why. Why would someone revive a loser like Supark, which protected no one and couldn't even defeat the hero of swords? As the thoughts of everyone who sacrificed their life for him start flashing inside Supark's mind, he just can't control his emotions anymore. However, before he can even start crying rivers, the green-haired girl slaps reality out of him. She then bluntly states that it's not that he can't protect them, it's because they protected him. Now going back to the White House, officials suspect that Supark is in Indonesia. Nonetheless, wherever they are, the officials will surely track down their exact location and report. The president then asks what they propose to do at that time. Since the collapse of Korea will spread through main media channels, it will surely form a sort of distress to the citizens of the United States and other nations. That said, some officials want to fire all the missiles and arms, while Korean officials don't want their nation to be destroyed in such a way. Then, one general said that they should make a preemptive strike, which made the US president furious, knowing they would sacrifice more troops. However, that isn't what the general meant. Since all the heroes have been gathered, it would be a great choice if they just deploy the nukes called the God's Hammer. That way, all the problems will vanish in an instant. That said, the astronauts in space are now preparing to launch the big boy as the president orders, which makes the hostility of the world targets one person's evil intent. In Korea, Minsu tells one poor survivor to tell everyone that the hero of the spear has died, and there is no more hope. He wants them to watch the end of the world as they curl up on the ground. However, it seems like the guy is far more fearless than I thought. He stands up for Supark, stating that Minsu must be really scared of him, seeing how frightened he is by the idea that people will start revolting again, as they are now hopeful for everyone. This made Minsu angry, slicing the man's head as if it were just nothing. Then, before his anger eats him up again, the other evil heroes have been gathered, assuring him that he can take all the time he wants. Now that they have already destroyed the secret government and the secret city, along with wiping out the whole population, they are not trying to think of the next course of action. Mintzu states that they should follow the hero of the spear, considering there are still countless numbers of people that have high hopes for him. His presence alone is a denial of the world Mintzu has created. Even if it's not just in Korea, they are now planning to take on the world. Back in the US, the president now announced to the people that they have resorted to taking the worst course of action on their end. Considering that many troops have already died, to save their families from the sorrow of losing them, the country has decided to deploy the weapon that has been sealed for half a century. And it's none other than a nuclear missile. Meanwhile, the heroes are also aware of what's coming for them. However, such things don't bother them at all, considering they have a reset button. Now all they have to do is wait for the fireworks of death to come to them. Now, as Mintzu and the others wait for their deaths, since they're going to be reset anyways, the hero of return, Lee Sung-jun, then tells Mintzu something that will definitely shock him. Since they will pretty much forget about their memories once they reset, Sung-jun confesses to Mintzu that he is the one that killed Mintzu's parents, which literally angered Mintzu so much. Then, Sung-jun returned to when they sent the CCTV clips to the States. During this time, he is planning to do something. The astronauts in the United States space station are preparing the nuclear weapon to be launched as God's hammer key is already accessed. The launch device has now been disarmed. The astronauts are now on standby until the last command is received from their country. Then, one of the astronauts asks if the God's hammer has ever been used unofficially at all. The captain then responds that this is the first time they will use the nuclear weapon. That said, they don't know the strength of its effect. It's just the fact that it is the most precise and most effective weapon to annihilate in the history of mankind. Now, after receiving confirmation from the Eagle, aka the president, the astronauts immediately launched God's hammer. However, before they can even do so, it seems like the evil heroes have already formulated their schemes and plans. The nuclear weapon didn't launch at Korea. On that day, 16 missiles from God's hammer were launched all over the world from Paris, France, Beijing, China, New Delhi, India, and Cairo, Egypt. It was the day the world had come to a close. As the US Transportation Minister saw the news, he was devastated to see that the country he once called home is now nothing but dust. Since the president and vice president, along with the chairman and congressmen, have all died, and all the capitals and their cabinets were blown away, one person was able to avoid the chaos thanks to a lecture in Michigan. The minister is now the commander-in-chief. The other officials then enter, initiating taking his oath of delegation. After he became the president, he is given the nuclear briefcase, which is now the direct hotline to the hero of Reformation, considering he is able to hack it. It is said that he first appeared 100 years ago in Europe and was the grand hero that ended the First and Second World Wars. In the 20th century, he turned the US into the greatest world power and into the leading vision of scientific and technological discovery. Now, it's up to the new commander-in-chief how he will turn the tables in their favor. It must be really nerve-wracking to be in his place now, huh? Every 100 years, a hero is conscripted or enlisted based on random coordinates, in Egypt and other parts of the world. And the new heroes affect the Demon King and change the material world we live in. Some become characters in a myth. Some become emperors who bring order during troubled times. Well, some become pioneers in scientific innovation. And then they continue to stay alongside us in the development of humankind. That said, the evil heroes are now on the move once again to reach their goals of making the world a place no one can be happy. However, it seems like everything that was said earlier was just a hypothesis made by Hwarang. Gosh. Basically what Hwarang is saying is that there can be heroes outside of Korea. This hypothesis is then agreed on by the others as well, considering it certain once everything seems to be interrelated to all myths and folklore if they see it the other way. Everyone starts discussing it from there. However, the hero with strong arms couldn't agree with it, but it doesn't matter to him anyway, considering that even if there were heroes, they're still not immortal. However, the hero of faith then states that there is a chance that some are immortal, considering there are heroes who have lived over 100 years, like her, and if they are beings who have transcended being human, like the hero of Reformation, heroes who are non-human may be alive, Hwarang added. In Silicon Valley, the minister, together with other officials, checks on a secret facility where Einstein, Tesla, Newman, and the founders of Silicon Valley are altering the egos of an AI. The AI already knows what the president wants from him. Seeing that he has come to see him, it's pretty apparent that the president is looking to eliminate the heroes who have caused the nuclear terror. Although at first, the president was half in doubt when he sought AI, but thinking back on all of the innovations he has brought, it may really be possible. The AI then tells him that the previous president did not want to rely on a non-human like him. The old president wished for humankind to change the world based on their own abilities, and AI also agrees with that philosophy. But now, since the new president sought out his help, the AI aims not to disappoint him. The new president then asks for the reason why the AI wants to save the nation, and the heroes why he is different from the heroes in Korea. The reason he stated this is because the nation embraced him like its own, and that was the only reason he needed. He's also the hero of Reformation, named Marie Stephenson. At the Vatican State in the Vatican basement, the Pope is revealing something that has been hidden below the basement. During the 14th century, the last missionary to have officially performed a miracle and the last hero of faith that was amicable towards human was inside that. The hero of faith, Saint Damien Arcadius. At the Sakha Republic, Russia Oymyakon, a man named veteran Ivan Pushkin is introduced. He's the hero of their nation whose name won't be mentioned in history. He's the hero of glaciation. The judgment of God befell across the world, and the world government lost order as their weapon against the heroes. As domestic sentiments became restless due to radiation exposure from the nuclear bomb, the idea of forming an allied troop to stop the heroes' advances was foiled. All the so-called evil heroes are now making their way to different places across the globe. Some went to Los Angeles, while some went to Egypt and Italy, all while each possessed different sorrows. Kim Min-soo is then seen at the Democratic People's Republic of Korea, Pyongyang defense line. He has now entered North Korean territory. The soldiers immediately informed their supreme leader about the intruder. The supreme leader was shocked to discover that a mere man like Min-soo had defeated their first line of defense. No one can believe how Min-soo walked up the minefield with nothing on his body. The supreme leader seems so worried about the incident, but knowing that Russia and China wouldn't leave them alone relieves his stress a bit. And hearing some rumors that Russia has a hero themselves makes the supreme leader confident that they'll win the battle. With that said, until they dispatch the Russian hero, the supreme leader orders his soldiers to prepare the infantries and the tanks. He even thought of using the nuclear weapon they have poured blood money into. As the tanks lock their eyes on Min-soo, everyone immediately fired their weapons, considering that there is no human being who's able to survive such an attack. The North Korean soldiers thought they had finally killed the villain. Little did they know that Min-soo is no human, but a monster. That's why when one of the soldiers checks the surroundings, he notices that Min-soo is walking like nothing happened. At this point, it is now Min-soo's time to attack. With one swing of his majestic sword, everything that his eyes can see is now destroyed. As he walks, every land that he steps on gets destroyed in one snap. He keeps walking and destroying everything, until the only being to stop him appeared. It is none other than the good Russian hero. The year 1943, at the Nazi National Assembly Hall, there was so much stress after hearing news from the Eastern Front lines. It seems like he honestly thought that they would win the battle and capture Stalingrad. But after the soldier informs him that they had lost the battle and that the majority of the Panzer Army was captured, the leader gets so furious as he can't believe that the 6th and 17th Elite Infantry Squads, together with the 1st and 4th Panzer Army, with two heroes of the Golem, Jonas and Siegfried, were defeated. The leader cries his eyes out and tries to think of anything that would have stopped his undefeatable army. It turns out it is the hero from Russia. Siegfried then asks him why he would side with the Order as a hero. Does he have no ambitions? The man then answers that he has ambitions, and is to end the war a day earlier and send his comrades into the embrace of their families. Hearing this made Siegfried laugh, considering the Russian hero's goal is so boring, not like his, who wants to dominate the world. As he smirks a little, the Russian hero then slices his body off into two, with his head getting decapitated. Fast forward to the present, he's now facing Min-soo, the modern dominator. But since the old one just wanted a world without war, you can't possibly let Min-soo get away with his murders. With that said, they are not technically enemies, but before they can even start the fight, the Russian hero first asks Min-soo something. This made Min-soo speechless for a while, but then, the Russian hero asks him what his desire is. Why would he be so willing to cause this much misery and set alight the world? However, at this point, even Min-soo doesn't know anymore what he's fighting for. With that said, the Russian hero has now got his answer that Min-soo indeed doesn't have a proper reason behind his massacre, which means that the fight is now about to start. As Min-soo swings his sword, the Russian hero then puts some crystals into his mouth to make it a shield for the coming attack that Min-soo throws at him. Seeing how the Russian hero fights, Min-soo has concluded that his enemy is a summoner type, and he knows for a fact that magicians are really annoying. The Russian hero didn't stop as he attacked once more, turning everything into a winter wonderland. But it seems like Min-soo didn't get a scratch from the attack, as expected from a hero. A single blink of an eye amidst the chill would be fatal for a normal person. However, as long as he is exposed to this kind of temperature, he will not be able to use his abilities to the fullest. Most of his body will be used to constantly recover his bruised and beaten body. In this way, the Russian hero plans to end the fight before Min-soo finally adjusts to the cold energy. With that said, the Russian hero attacks Min-soo one after another. For the first time, Min-soo is really struggling. It seems like Min-soo didn't learn anything. According to the Russian hero, if it was anyone else, he would have stopped attacking by now and checked for a pulse, but he will not do such a thing with Min-soo. However, as a turn of events, while the Russian soldier keeps attacking and attacking, Minsu is then seen summoning his sword as he now finally adjusts to the environment. Seeing Minsu all well and moving freely made the Russian hero worried, and it seems like he had taken the fight for granted as Minsu had now won. A mage will always have the upper hand in a battle against a swordsman, considering they are able to attack at a much farther distance using their supreme range. Furthermore, the utilization is endless, so it's hard for the opponent to recognize the patterns. That's why it's so unbelievable that Minsu had already realized these points. It is then revealed that this was the case since he had already experienced it beforehand after he had won the battle against the hero of sorcery. Minsu used his uniquely exceptional defense and let himself become vulnerable to the opponent's attack. This way he can give the impression that his attack range and speed were far lower than the opponent's. And when the opponent relaxed, he slashed their neck off with an instantaneous explosive power. Before the corpse of Ivan Pushkin signified his sure victory, Minsu felt like something was out of place. For him, it feels like something important is missing. He has a feeling that he had missed something. At this point, Minsu has finally noticed that for a hero that has survived longer than 100 years, the Russian hero, Ivan, suspiciously got defeated very easily. This was a fight without any of its tricks, experience, and dignity. Finally, his suspicion soon changed into a crisis. Minsu finally realized that even though Ivan's head was cut off, there was no blood coming out from it. And then out of nowhere, Ivan attacks him with an ice dagger. Their fight then continues, and with Ivan's attack, Minsu has finally felt the coldness inside him. In a statement, he said he could now feel the chill spreading from his heart, and as long as it is inside his body, the goddess's blessing is useless. If you drag this out any longer, he'll end up getting frozen solid first. He now only has 30 seconds before he ends up rotting from the cold. But before his time is up, Minsu resolves himself to try his best until the end, no matter what. But before we dive right into that, let's first have a backstory. A long time ago, a boy's family lived in poverty, so he sold his body to the war in exchange for 3 months worth of food for his family. In 1916, during World War I, he was positioned at the Eastern Front line, and soon he felt the horrors of the war engulf his entire body. The boy couldn't stop crying as he heard the shouts and cries of anguish and anger echoing everywhere. He starts praying that the war will stop as he wants to live. He has nothing to wish for other than peace. Fast forward, this little boy is now grown into the man Ivan is today. That's why Ivan aims to stop Minsu no matter what. In his mind, if Minsu is to be left alive, he will only bring unprecedented chaos into the world. Using endless soldiers' armored swords and guns, the hero of the golem that controlled air supremacy, the hero of the sword that rivaled his destructive power, and lastly, the freezing chills that devoured his body. Minsu felt as if he was playing a hopeless chess game. However, it seems like Minsu hasn't given up yet. He wants everyone to know what he is feeling and to understand him. He wanted to release the anger and sorrow that he bottled inside himself. But as a result, he has become a complete monster. That's why Ivan helps him cool down his head, literally. Minsu is now frozen cold inside an ice capsule, and for the first time, Ivan has felt the exhaustion from the fight. But as fate has it, Minsu's comrades have arrived when he is already on the verge of dying. Some may call it a coincidence, but Minsu is definitely lucky. On the other hand, seeing them made Ivan worried, as he couldn't possibly deal with them all alone. Even the other heroes are shocked at Minsu's state. With that said, greater despair comes up onto the uninvited stage. Meanwhile, in the other parts of the world, the other evil heroes are now making their move. The US Air Force is seen fighting with their advanced jets. When people no longer have hope, the little possibilities and achievements done by heroes in a completely hopeless situation is what people call a miracle. But it seems like no miracles will happen to the world today, as the hero of faith is able to transform each and every missile they sent at him into petals. Even the soldiers are shocked by this phenomenon. But they didn't give up and will strike again and again. However, before they can even attack once more, they've now found themselves turning into petals as well. And just like that, the US Air Force got defeated in a snap. It seems like not all miracles are good-natured. It seems like some are despicably bad to handle. With that said, there's no more hope for the people, as both the Air Force and the Navy have now been completely annihilated. The general then starts to question how humans could be so powerless and face such a bad miracle. Then, someone from the group cuts him off, saying that what's happening is no miracle at all. Hero of Faith, Saint Damien Arcadius, then enters the scene saying that he will show everyone what a true miracle is. The general is so shocked as he starts to question where Damien came from. As expected, Damien already knows that no one would remember who he was, but still assures them that they should believe that he'll definitely win the fight. Damien Arcadius, the Soul Saint, appeared in the form of a small child when the Black Plague ravaged the lands. He is the small miracle that sealed himself alongside all plagues because of his great love for mankind. The towns he visited flourished with milk and honey for orphans that he bottled inside him. With that said, Damien will now be engaged in a close fight with the current hero of faith, Hana. Even Damien can't believe that another hero of faith, just like him, exists somewhere in the world. However, although Hana looks like a strong hero, Damien is able to look through her eyes. Damien had noticed that the people around her were stricken with fear, just like her before she became a hero. Remembering such a spiteful memory made Hana hysterical. As a result, she ended up bursting everyone with her. She can't believe that Damien knows such a thing. Due to her fear of hearing more from Damien, she summons the fallen angel Myrtaniel to join her in the fight. But it seems like even though it is so majestic, Damien doesn't show any hint of fear at all. Again, before we dive right into the fight, let's first know the backstory behind Hana's revenge and anger to the world. Not a long time ago, Hana's mother was a person of faith. They always go to church, sing songs with everyone, and repent to God every single day. Growing up in such a religious environment is what made Hana religious. At least that's what she thought. Seeing her mom love and pray to God, Hana only prayed for her mother's happiness not to end. She enjoyed the prayer sessions, even though her friends called it a cult. At school, she ended up getting bullied for being too religious. However, instead of sulking about it, because of her mom, she didn't cry a drop of tears. She smiled through her toughest times until that incident happened. The supposedly head of the church and the man of God ended up being a pervert who used her and her mom. Since then, the event got stuck inside her head, and every time she heard about it, she got very angry. Now that her anger is lashing out and far more oppressive than it was before, Damien summons someone who protects and defends the orphan and Titaniel. Meanwhile, the church is now worried about the result of the fight. Still, instead of worrying about it, the Pope assures everyone that Damien will win this fight, considering that the weapon of the fake hero, aka Hana, is at the most just millions of fear-stricken believers. On the other hand, Damien has a weapon of at least 1.1 billion Catholic believers. Chapels and churches across nations are with Damien, and every believer is requested to say their prayers for the saint. That's why there is no need to doubt Damien, and the only thing they can do is pray together. At this point, Hana just realizes that the lack of firepower was due to a difference in the number of believers. With that said, Damien has now summoned his secret weapon, Cherubim Samatil, a goddess with long red hair that brings peace to everyone. As Samatil descends, Damien then tells the false prophet, Hana, since she likes the battle of firepower, she now has the chance to fight the said powerful weapon. Of course, Hana wouldn't allow such a thing to scare her. As a result, she dives right into fighting it without thinking twice. However, she slowly realizes that the size of faith is far too different. The difference in scale between the same skill is way too big. That's why she needs to break through and get his head. Using her minions as a sacrifice, she paved her way to Damien. When she finally reaches him, she immediately swings her tool in hopes that she'll have the victory. However, it seems like such a thing wouldn't happen since Damien has chopped off her head within just a split second. In the end, it seems like Hana's faith wasn't that strong all along. But thinking that the battle was over, it seems like Hana has something up her sleeves. As her head is about to drown in the depths of the ocean, we can see that she is able to regenerate herself. It turns out that Hana has a specialty called regeneration, and using such skill, she continuously fought. Seeing her determination made Damien smile, but it seemed like Damien was also not giving up as well. Hana utilized the Villian secured in Korea. At the Republic of Korea, north of Jeolla province, which is Hana's lair, regarded as the center of faith, a number of believers are seen praying and stating that they will sacrifice themselves for Hana. It turns out that once a believer sacrifices themselves for Hana, Hana will be able to use her regeneration skill. However, in cases where she will only have a number of believers at her hand, she will end up dying herself. But knowing that she can regenerate 1,000,000 times more without hesitance, she charges on regardless of death. And that repeated tens and hundreds of times, she pressed on with the wheel of repeating, even beyond thousands of tries. Even Damien starts to get confused as to why Hana is engaging in this meaningless war of attrition. Just as there are no beings without any meaning, there are no actions done without any meaning as well, according to Hana. With that said, this whole scheme is actually Hana's grand plan. Seeing that Hana isn't dying at all, many of the religious individuals are getting scared at the thought that Hana might actually win. In this grotesque battle, repeating hundreds and even thousands of times, Damien's believers, that is, within the heart of the Catholic believers that trusted their faith to be omnipotent, doubt has started to bloom. With that said, those who have doubted will now become Hana's believers. After all, the origin of Hana's faith, which is fear, has now started to spread like wildfire. The Holy Church is now in chaos, while Hana has slowly fulfilled her plan. When Hana finally lands a hit on Damien, Damien has now felt that her origin of power is slowly decreasing. As Hana began to devour Damien's believers, her power started increasing. Therefore, the gap between power began to decrease at twice the speed. The world is now in chaos with everyone sacrificing and killing themselves. As fear started to eat up on everyone, Hana was now leading the faith race. At this point, Damien has finally realized that this was Hana's plan all along. As time passed, his believers are starting to lose faith. That said, while he still has the upper hand, he plans to end this chaos once and for all. Using 100 million people's worth of faith, he summons someone by the name of Seraphim Michael. Damien then orders Michael to annihilate the Antichrist, and without any question, he does what he has been ordered to. Michael prepares his fire sword with much dedication and power, as seen in his eyes. The Sword of Fire is a holy weapon that damages the being itself, which means that it will definitely work on Hana. However, instead of fighting for Damien, Michael ends up attacking Damien instead. After all, when faith disappears and turns away in moments, wouldn't angels feel the fear as well? At this point, fear has spread faster than hope. Damien remembered people, but everyone who remembered him had already died. The people rejected Hana, but the fear of her actions had already been spreading. She has been preparing for the moment when the fear that was implanted becomes an explosive for the final moment. The Vatican had recognized this, and to gather the fates of people to Damien, they had covered the battle for the believers as a public broadcast. However, this resulted in the worst decision they made, as everyone is now in chaos, even the Vatican itself. In Damien's battle, instead of feeling hope and faith, fear is felt more by the people. As a result, Damien ends up losing the fight, not because he is incompetent, but because the people have forgotten him. As he drowns in the depths of the sea, Damien is somehow taken into a place he has never seen before. There he sees a group of kids looking curiously at him. As he wonders his eyes, he sees that he is in an orphanage named after him. There he realizes that there are still people who remember him, and these are the children. It turns out that the reason why Damien strived to be remembered as a saint of abundance to the children is that he, in his previous life, was a starving child. He was abandoned at birth by his parents and was raised in a group of young beggars. There he was treated like shit and was beaten continuously. Before he could pass the age of 10, he was run over by a merchant's cart. And as he began to turn cold on the freezing mountain road, he thought that he wanted to live again in a world where children like him wouldn't lose their parents and starve. If possible, he wanted to make such a world with his own hands. He wanted to give children the opportunity to become an adult unlike him. And the fact that after all those struggles as a saint, Damien smiles as he sees that there are still people left that remember him. Seeing how happy the kids are, Damien thanks them for remembering him. He also promises that he'll make sure to make a future that can make them become adults. With that said, Damien is now back in the real world with 100% hope and dedication. When he got back, Hana had now absorbed the majority of the 1.1 billion believers. Seeing how pathetic Damien looks right now makes Hana happy. As Hana's believer starts rushing towards him, although struggling to fight back, Damien tells himself that he should endure everything as he can't possibly use faith in this. If faith was just a simple fight that depended on numbers, Damien's defeat was clear. But for Damien, fate is not just a number. It is engraved inside each believer. No matter how many people believe in him, it may be few or many. As long as he believes in himself, everything will go smoothly. Even though Hana's believers try to defeat Damien with all their might, it seems like Damien has made a miracle. He glows in spite of the darkness, and this makes everyone watching amazed. Even Hana was shocked by the fact that Damien is able to endure such attacks with such a weak body. This pretty much proves that secular materials or numbers for counting cannot define faith. Now that Damien is finally within range, the faith that he received has different origins from that ball of fear. The small seeds of goodwill that he planted into the orphans hundreds of years ago have now made him as powerful as ever. Damien's faith is a type of faith that transcends generations, linking from roots to roots. That said, the holy spear made by the compassion of Damien has finally been made. Even if that faith may only be a handful, it can become a beacon to guide through the pitch darkness. The spear that Damien has is the spear that contains the meaning of his life and life itself. As a result, no one, even Hana, can block such a powerful faith. However, despite knowing that he might get defeated, Hana keeps her cool and laughs the situation off, saying that she still has as many believers as she needs to sacrifice. But as she looks at her minions, she finds them crying and standing still. In the end, people have now seen the faith of goodwill, and they have come to realize how disgusting their faith is. However, Hana hasn't given up yet, as she still engages in fighting. As the spear of faith first passed through her, she instinctively knew that once she grabbed that spear piercing through her, this spear that had been burrowing inside her was washing away her fears. As her fears from her life started to flash, she started crying herself. At this rate, the source of her power, rage, sorrow, and fear would disappear. Hana now can't stop crying as she states that Damien shouldn't pretend to understand her. She then blames him for not saving her when she needed it the most. Hana still believes that she can make everyone believe in her again, rushing towards Damien in hopes that after she kills him, everything will go back to how it was. However, Hana didn't expect what would happen next. Damien opens his arms as he sacrifices himself in order to console her. As the spear pierced Damien's insides, both of them entered the gates of gods, with Damien still holding onto the lost spirit of Hana. Meanwhile, in Silicon Valley, a Reformation warrior, Marie Stevenson, is seen trying to order the US Army to follow her plan. She tells them to redirect all forces from the western area to the eastern area. All the generals seem a bit confused with Stevenson's plan. Since the Republic of Korea's hero of Reformation is currently approaching the western coast, the generals can't seem to understand why Stevenson is allowing him to enter without even stopping him. Stevenson then explains that one should not fight battles with courage alone. She even added that the hero of Reformation specializes in responding to modern weapons, and it would result in throwing away the lives of many soldiers, so that's why she is suggesting such a plan. After all, the country needs a monster to deal with a monster, and she will be that monster. The higher-ups then ask if that's the only thing they can do is arrange refugee guidance. Stevenson then states that yes, since people will be more willing to trust the warm words of everyone rather than a pile of machines like him. With that said, the higher-ups have now agreed with Stevenson's plan, and she is now on her way to kill some heroes. When she reaches Los Angeles, she sees Lee Garam trying to destroy the whole city. Garam is shocked at the fact that a robot like him exists, but after analysis, it seems like Stevenson's technologies are vastly superior to considered modern technology. At this point, Garam has now realized that Stevenson might be the predecessor of him that everyone is talking about. Stevenson then tells Garam that she is aware of the casualties that she has done. She tells him that she should repent while it is still early and just use her technology to help save billions of people in the world. However, it seems like Garam's mind was bewildered by Stevenson's ignorant suggestion. She states that an opportunity can only be given to the weak by the strong, and that Stevenson's reformation was done with technology 100 years ago, so there is no way she's far stronger than him now. With that said, Garam can't wait to destroy Stevenson, so she initiates the fight immediately. As she drops his bombs, she never expected that Stevenson would be able to block her attack without any scratches. As she looks closely at the barrier, it looks like a form of defense barrier, but that kind of technology does not exist in this world. Stevenson then states that in the 100 years since she returned back to the world, she didn't just play around during those times. The technology you have learned and obtained in the other world was used as the foundation of new technologies in different directions. It was developed alongside the humans that got onto tests. Stevenson is so futuristic that she even prepared these innovations to stop the disaster known as the hero that will appear 100 years later. This weapon is a city-type massive weapon for a decisive battle here, called the Silicon Valley. The 100 years that humanity has prepared solely for the sake of future generations. 100 years that were prepared by the talents and sacrifices of many humans. So Stevenson tells Garam to pay her respects as she faces this massive masterpiece. But just like before, we first dive into some backstory before we jump into the exciting part. Manhattan Project, that's what they call it. It was the research and development project for nuclear weapons led by the US during the Second World War. Once the operation ended, she got through the participants known as the brains of the West once again. As doctors and scientists were able to end the World War in their hands, together with the Reformation hero, Miss Mary at that time, aka Stevenson, thought of a plan to prepare against the hero that would arrive in the 21st century. This made everyone confused as to why she would think that the next generation of heroes would take the sides of evil like their generation. As they ask for concrete evidence, Mary states that she has none, but they must pray that the weapon they will make together will never have to be revealed to the world. That's how the Silicon Valley project came to be after the Manhattan Project was executed. With that said, the scientists, doctors, engineers, and Mary started to work hand in hand to make the project come to life. Now back in the present, as the United States Central Command informed Stevenson that the evacuation of the area within a 100-kilometer radius of LA has now been completed, she will execute the next plan. A long chain then grabs her to synchronize with what seems to be a gigantic machine. With their command, Silicon Valley will now initiate combat. She first sends off missiles towards Garam. Garam, on the other hand, is excited about how a 100-year-long project will fight against a modern innovation like her. As their fight continues, Stevenson aims not to give Garam any opening since it will be the end of them. She tries to make sure that she makes the right attacks at the right moments, and somehow it does work. This left an impression on Garam. Not bad for a 100-year-old investment, he says. As Garam analyzes the situation, she discovers that the win rate for all-out war is approximately 30%. As he calculated the win rate for a frontal assault, he found out that it was around 59%. With that said, there's no other way to win but to change mode. Garam then decompresses 30%, letting himself change. With that said, Garam then rushes towards the shield. Stevenson then tells the system to push more energy into the shield since if she enters the inside, the fortress won't be able to function properly. But before they can even conclude their fight with one another, another hero appears, none other than Chung Uiho, or much known as the hero of Iron Arms. With Uiho's help, the shield is now slowly getting destroyed, and this scared the hell out of Stevenson. Stevenson tries to order the system to put more power into it, but it seems like the drones will now explode if they overcharge. As Uiho now enters the shield, Stevenson somehow loses hope for everybody. On the other hand, Garam is seen enjoying how is supposed to be a 100-year-old monster killing machine got defeated all because of the creators associating herself with incompetent beings like humans. In the year 1908, in England, London, at a Chelsea textile factory, Mary and Stevenson first met. Mary was working as a machine fixer with below minimum pay. Since she pays for most of their bills and siblings and is considerably smart, Mr. Stevenson decided to ask Mary to join his shop in London. Using that incident as a chance, Mary began to research together with him in Stevenson's workshop. But a disaster happened that marked great trauma for Mary. Mr. Stevenson ended up dying in a fire, which was so heartbreaking for Mary. Mr. Stevenson then states on his last breaths that great scientists are said to label their names to achievements worthy of it until their death. That's why he wants Mary to be his achievement. All he asks is for Mary to take on his name. On that day, Mary replaced her family name. Since then, she has been named Mary Stevenson. She learned how humans leave their traces behind. She would labor in the factory during the daytime, and she would continue Stevenson's research at nighttime. She chased after the trace until she died of overwork. When she returned, she left achievements worthy of being scribed on history alongside geniuses that she could call comrades. Now, she is watching those traces become burnt to the ground as iron arms destroyed everything. The clear traces of fellow researchers were disappearing. Those achievements that proved someone like her, with skin made out of steel and veins made out of electric wires, to be the same human as her comrades, were beginning to collapse. The psychopaths that had lost their humanity were massacring her and her comrades' humanity. Seeing this made her stomach churn to the next level. Her anger starts to flood in at the thoughts of these bastards trying to eliminate everything that the civilization has done. That's why she aims to stop them no matter what, even if they die. With that said, using Asimorph, she pushes Silicon Valley out of its trajectory and starts the combat armament progress of her body. After the combat armament has been approved, it will now switch to autopilot. With a little tweak here and there, the noble battle to protect humanity is now about to continue. In the world of Reformation, one must give up their humanity in order to survive. The first Reformation started with the fingers. Next are the arms to increase firepower, then the legs to increase stability. The organs are also taken out to increase the output. In order to return to their original world, to the people who await them, and to continue their lives, ironically, the chosen heroes of Reformation must give up their humanity for humanity. To become a human and return to the crowd of humans, heroes of Reformation must give up on becoming humans. But when they return back to the world of humanity, people only see them as weapons, a monster, and someone to be afraid of. But despite all this, Stevenson will not throw away her humanity and will still fight for peace. She starts off by elevating the fortress, which makes Iron Arm's effectiveness reduced. With that said, Garam will now be the main target. As they both rushed towards each other, it would now be a fight between two monster machines of the past and the present, of the old and the new. As the fight intensifies, when Garam thinks that everything will now be under her arms, Stevenson ends up telling another plan she has up her sleeves. It is said that humans are composed of flesh, blood, and bones. But ironically, the beings concerned with the battle that determines the life and death of those monsters were equipped with solid steel armor instead of soft flesh. Oil and electricity flowed in their veins instead of blood, and steel frames instead of bones. That said, with all her might, Stevenson tries to defeat Garam using her skills and new innovations. She even used her photo laser sequence to make Garam's life harder. As the laser pierced through Garam's iron body, she started to question her predecessor. Why would someone like her side with the humans? Garam knows that at some point in Stevenson's life before, she was rejected and called a monster, so she wonders why she would still work and fight for humans who turned their back on her. Garam tells her how much she hates her for not changing the world years ago, stating that she could have become the god of a new world and raised the heroes to a status of respect, but instead she hides from everyone, only trying to build new things in preparation for defeating the next evil hero. Garam can't seem to comprehend why someone as powerful as Stevenson even does such a thing. Stevenson then simply states that she did all this because no matter how they look or what they are made of, they are all still humans. She sees herself as no god, and she doesn't want to be one anyway. She didn't also want to become a monster, a weapon, a hero, or a machine. All she wanted was to live like a human as she used to. She has longed to live as a human. Of course, there's no doubt she would receive rejection, since there are people that would be terrified by a body made out of steel. That's why the suffering and agony of identities only belong to her. However, just because she was selected as a hero during the violent times, it doesn't mean that she has become a victim. You must earn that record to understand her, she explained, since understanding cannot be coerced. In the end, after all the things she has been through the years, all the people and comrades she is able to meet, all she wants is to die as a human. For her, the other heroes may scream about their hatred of humans and continue to kill them, but in the end, they still long for humans more than anyone else. Hearing the word longing made Garam remember some good things, but it seems like the hatred inside her has flooded her whole being. She thinks that all the good things in her life were taken from her, therefore she needs to be compensated. For Garam, there's not a single trace left of her humanity. Since her loved ones have called her a monster, she's simply doing them a favor by actually living up to the name. Meanwhile, one of Stevenson's robots, Asimorph, states that he doesn't seem to understand a human wanting to be a human. They're killing other humans in order to assert their humanity. They're burning down the world in order to belong to our world. And it's not just the heroes. Many humans on Earth ignore the humanity of others in order to assert their own. They are busy burning down homes, waging war, yelling loudly, and repeating each other. Isomorph started to have doubts about this being known as humans. He doesn't understand why Stevenson would fight for the sake of incomplete beings inferior to herself. But in order to save the twisted world, the eyes of Stevenson fighting against those twisted enemies shines brighter than ever. Stevenson then explains that the reason he is not able to understand her is proof that she is no longer a cold machine. As they continue to fight, Stevenson then thinks of the pioneers and scholars who consider their lives as fuel for the hope that only they can achieve and continue their research. However, Stevenson could achieve those without incinerating her life. That's why she made it her lifelong mission to choose to die as a human, for Garam and her past self. She realized that after looking at Garam's true form, she is technically facing her past self. That's why she'll make this event her last chance to make herself into a human. Stevenson then leaves her pod and rushes toward Garam. As she gets closer, she tells Isomorph that on that day, she will indeed die as a human. A human who dies while leaving the job for the next generation. A human who can comfort and wipe the tears of others. With that said, as she was only a meter away from Garam, she pierced a device into Garam's chest. This made Garam very angry. Garam then asks her what device did she stab into her. Stevenson then states that for 100 years, she didn't only prepare to defend against the future heroes, but there is something more. All the parts of the said device are composed of organic materials, with the exception of the forebrain, which means she has made a dummy that is human. As Garam slowly realizes it, it seems like the device is actually a device that makes a robot turn back into a human. Realizing this made Garam think, why would Stevenson give up something important like this to her when in fact, she could have actually changed herself back into becoming a human. All that Stevenson states is that she didn't need it at all, since she is already a human. This made Garam confused since Stevenson didn't look like a human at all. But for Stevenson, humans are incomplete. They are illogical and wish for ungrantable things. When she looks back at her life, she has done all of that already. The only thing she hasn't done yet is sacrificing herself for the unsure future. That's why she decided to give up her present for the future and let Garam come out from the iron cocoon. She wants her to grab this opportunity and be a human once more. As Stevenson falls to the ground, Isomorph asks if she had any regrets, to which she immediately answers no. As a last order, since the hero's iron arm is still alive, she asks Isomorph to initiate the self-destruct sequence of the fortress and leave Garam in his hands. Stevenson wants Isomorph to stand by Garam's side so that she may experience everything as a human. With that said, Garam will now have to choose what kind of life she will live. Will she turn back to being a villain? Or will she live a normal life as a human and help the ones in need? We will definitely know that in a while. Garam has sat down for hours and pondered for a while. She starts to question herself. What kind of life will she live now? Will she run away and strive for an ordinary life? Or will she continue the evil deeds that she has committed as a hero? If not, will she follow Mary's footsteps and become a being that brings hope into the world? For now, she herself doesn't know the answer yet, but she plans to look for the hero's spear and talk to him. So she asks Isomorph about the hero's location. After knowing it without any hesitation, Garam has decided that she will talk with the hero of Spear before he encounters the hero of Return, since there's something that she needs to tell him. Meanwhile, the hero of Return, Lee Sung-jun, is seen monitoring everyone through the CCTV cameras. After seeing the fight between Garam and Stevens, he honestly thinks that Garam got killed, so he marks a big X on Garam's image. He also states his amazement at how the elders have fought better than he has expected. Now that 2 chess pieces with the strongest firepower are out, Sung-jun starts to contemplate if he should reset. He starts to wonder if the result of saving 2 people is more critical, as he places the gun right in front of him, already aiming to shoot at any time. Sung-jun ends up not doing it as he thinks that it is not quite enough yet. For him, it would be rude to reset the surprising situation of Minsu's comrade appearing without watching the conclusion. Now Sung-jun cheers for Minsu to show him how strong he is. It seems like Sung-jun is really obsessed with seeing how Minsu would go. With an eerie look on his face, Sung-jun states that the reason behind the difference between some sort of childish story of opening status windows and theirs is not some inevitable unfair display of power, but a miracle that happens by chance. With that said, let's now get back to Minsu and Yvonne's fight. After Yvonne finally restrained Minsu inside his frozen capsule, Minsu's comrades arrived. Yvonne then starts to wonder what type of method Minsu used to call his comrades from the other world. Did he even call them in the first place, or did they come voluntarily? But one thing is for sure, these guys are here to save the ball from a disaster, Minsu. With that said, before anything gets out of control and Minsu creates yet another havoc, Yvonne will make sure to end it once and for all. As he aims to pierce his icy weapon, Minsu's comrades stop him by piercing a metal arrow through his hand. This resulted in Yvonne losing his balance and falling. As he looks at Minsu's comrades, he knows that he will have a hard time fighting them all. On the other hand, it didn't take long for the hero's companions to hastily judge the situation. The hero is frozen, and the old man is trying to end his life. That said, there's no doubt that they will engage in combat anytime soon. Yvonne tries to tell him that this is all a misunderstanding, but as they look at the city frozen in ice, with their kind hero being frozen to his death and the old man with an urgent look, it is definitely not the looks of a misunderstanding for them. Yvonne tries to tell them that Minsu's not the hero that they are thinking of anymore, but it seems like the conclusion has been made. Minsu's comrades see Yvonne as the old man that is trying to destroy the world that the hero is trying to protect. That's why they will do everything to save their hero. They then reason that this is their only way to pay back Minsu for all his sacrifices in their world. With that said, all 5 of Minsu's comrades from the past are now charging in to help their now evil savior. In a flashback, a magic that shares the target's change in lifespan was granted to Minsu by one of his comrades. She hoped that Minsu will be able to enjoy his life back in his original world, and when he reaches the end of his last moment, she promises that they will meet again. Now, back to the present, Minsu's old comrades are risking their lives for their fallen hero. They work hand in hand to make sure that Minsu will be saved no matter what. However, it seems like their rescue mission wouldn't be that easy. After analyzing the mana, they found out that Yvonne's ice was no ordinary ice, since they were made of sealing magic circles that were closer to a demon seal formation. Although they know that they don't have the mana to use on a large-scale skill like Undead Frost, they will still try their best despite everything. After fighting continuously, they were finally able to shut Yvonne down, who is now bleeding in pain. However, before things even got worse for Yvonne, the goddess of glaciation, the Snow Witch, has arrived. The Snow Witch patted Yvonne's forehead, whom she refers to as her final hero, while stating that the competence he showed back in his prime days has now died, and he is only left with just an old body. But Yvonne couldn't seem to not think of the statement that the Snow Witch had stated earlier about him being her final hero. The Snow Witch then explains that the current hero of glaciation has lost to the Demon King. This means in her world, everyone was entirely unrelated except for Yvonne. Hearing this made Yvonne realize the reason why the Snow Witch, which he refers to as a whimsical lass, has decided to come to him. It seems like since the Snow Witch doesn't have a world she is interested in, that is why she just decided to watch Yvonne die. Instead of agreeing with Yvonne's statement, the Snow Witch asks him if he wants to kill the enemy before his eyes. Hearing this made Yvonne ask the Snow Witch for help. He simply wants her to grant him power, a power to protect his world. But before granting him anything, the Snow Witch first asks him what he can give in return. Yvonne immediately states that he can give everything that he has, including his life, soul, and anything she wants. As long as his world can be safe, as long as he can stop the disaster, as long as he can stop the war, Yvonne doesn't care whatever it may cost. But since Yvonne's life is about to end, and the Snow Witch doesn't know how to take away his soul, all that she can ask for right now is his memory. She wants his magnificent epic and to see what life Yvonne has been through. Since Yvonne didn't want to become a hero to begin with, and the only purpose he has for his existence is to save the world and maintain peace, he doesn't care much about such memories if they will mean the peace of the world. Hearing these heartwarming words made the Snow Witch cry, but she already expected such statements from a grand hero like Yvonne. His speech so moved her that she ended up deciding that what life Yvonne had before wasn't important anymore. As a result, she will now allow herself to become a tool that Yvonne will use to carry out the duties at the end of the war. As she kisses his forehead, the surrounding immediately changes in a snap. Yvonne's comrades start to get a weird feeling as the Snow Witch vanishes. They've all now started to wonder who the said girl is. When one of them realizes that the girl might have helped the old man to recover, 2 of them rush towards where the old man is. When they got there, they were shocked to discover that the girl had made the old man into an undead. Yvonne is now a monster that's beyond the realms of logic. He is now something that has surpassed the Demon King of Swords. Realizing that they wouldn't be able to defeat such a gigantic and powerful monster on their own without Minsu's help, one of them rushes back to the others to inform them about the incident and make sure that Minsu is recovering. While the other one is left to defend everyone, the one that was left to defend uses the 8 trigrams, which is considered to be the strongest illusion barrier that increases the speed, power, and chain rate of the scale by 8-folds, and decreases the stamina exhaustion and mana use by 8-folds as well. Although the execution of the illusion is quite strong, as long as he doesn't move a single inch, it's definitely doable. The man who is in defense right now is named Jin. In a short flashback before he joined the hero's party as their frontline combat member, Fighter Jin was a person who was well known in the world early on. He is a blessed mixed blood that was born between his father, the Mad King of the Beastman, and his mother, the Fighting Empress. He was only 3 years old when he was initiated into the martial arts organization, Ominous Cloud Sect, that not even the hero's faction or the Demon King's faction dared to touch. A few years later, when he turned 9, he was able to defeat his master's disciple and future sect leader, Gom Kobi. At 14, he then claimed the head of the Demon King's 13th seat commander, who had come to demand an offering from a town. When he was 17, he had won a sparring match against 127 disciples as the youngest sect leader. As he grew older, he started to get tougher and stronger, and eventually, anyone who was put against him gets defeated immediately, making him bored. It came to a point where people started to refer to him as the man that no one wanted to spar against because he was too powerful, the man whom the Demon King's faction sent envoys to recruit him. His true pursuit of great power all started when Jin met Minsu. On their first meeting, Jin already knew that Minsu was that powerful type, but he never expected to be defeated by a stranger. For the first time in his life, he wasn't the strongest. That's why Jin had grown fond and amazed at Minsu. With that said, it became a reason for him to join the hero's faction and become a companion of Minsu. But the clue behind the power of Minsu was never shown throughout the whole journey. However, there is one thing that Jin is able to realize, and that is Minsu is the hero who becomes stronger with each passing day, and he was just a mere comrade stepping behind Minsu's shadows. He became frustrated as he became an Achilles chasing after a tortoise, but now he's begun to understand what true power is. With this fight against Yvonne, he will do his best for his vision, comrades, and goal of catching up to Minsu. Jin thought that by dedicating his life to protecting others just like Minsu did in their world, he would be able to achieve victory, but he ended up running towards his defeat and death. As Yvonne's sharp ice dagger pierces through his body, splashes of blood are seen everywhere. But the only hope they have, which is Minsu, is still in need of protection as he still has 18 more minutes until his liberation. In a flashback, it is seen that not all of Minsu's comrades believe in him at the beginning as he is frail and weak and doesn't have the qualities of a strong warrior. Some of them even thought of leaving the party once and for all. However, it seems like the only one that had really stayed by Minsu's side since the beginning was the dwarf warrior. He was so moved by Minsu's statements, which state that even though the world was a strange place to him, Minsu was willing to do everything to protect the people. That's why since that day, they have all stayed by his side no matter what happens. Today is the day that Minsu is in need of their help. They will make sure to try their best and work hand in hand in protecting the said hero. As Yvonne is about to attack them and kill Minsu once and for all, they all go into their respective places and defend Minsu no matter what. The dwarf made this gigantic wall to conceal the recovering hero. However, it seems like no matter what they do, Yvonne will always find a way and fulfill his duties as a peacekeeper. As a result, he is still able to destroy the tall defense wall the dwarf did. As he locks his eyes on Minsu, still frozen inside the ice, Yvonne states that this will be the hero of the sword's end. As Yvonne gets closer and closer using her protection magic, one of Minsu's comrades tries to protect him no matter what. But as a turn of events, it seemed like this comrade actually hated Minsu before he even came to their world, because he had to act out the role of a priestess for the hero. While she was still young, she was taken away from her parents and left to live alone, all for the sake of the so-called hero. Her life, purity, and soul will have to be protected for the hero that will save their world. She started to question herself before why something as important as this would be given to her, as she is just a child who is satisfied with an ordinary life. But instead of answering her question calmly, the bishop hit her with his staff. The bishop then states that this is a job that risks hundreds of millions of lives in their world, so she should not talk lightly about the matter. She does have a choice to back down the offer, but as a consequence, she will have to be killed. A priestess is one who serves God. That's what everyone thinks. But there's someone else that they actually serve. All the successive priestesses were beings who catered to the hero's homesickness, sometimes out of false love, sometimes even by offering her body. They had to make sure that the hero left their lingering attachment to their world. So, long before the hero arrived in the new world, she was coerced into a false love with them. She couldn't eat what she wanted. She had to learn what she didn't want to learn. She also had to master the method of obeying destiny. Every day of her life, she wished not to be someone like a priestess, but in the end, it was her life's duty to be one. For those long years, she had hated the hero more than ever. However, Minsu was different from someone she had in mind. Minsu didn't fall into any temptation and didn't coerce her into anything. He respected her and saw her as an individual of honor. Minsu was someone she looked up to. That's why now that Minsu badly needed their help, she would do anything for him just like he did in her world. Therefore, no matter what happened to her, she'll make sure to save Minsu no matter what. Minsu was even shocked after seeing that the girl ended up getting killed by Yvonne's undead minions while trying to say the words, "I love you." After seeing his comrades dying in front of him, Minsu couldn't contain his emotions anymore as he started to burst out in tears, the same he did when he found out his parents had died. He then starts to think that he had a terrible nightmare. Inside the dream, he was dragged into a strange world, and he needed to defeat the Demon King of that world in order to return to his family. He had a difficult journey for about a year, and when he had saved that world and returned, he found out that his parents had already long passed away. None of his friends, relatives, and society accepted him, and it really hurt him so much. It wasn't that he was heartbroken. It wasn't that his insides were smoldering. It was as if he was biting through his own flesh. It was extremely suffocating, miserable, and sorrowful. That's why he decided to swing what was in his hand with all his strength. Though he had briefly released the sorrow that he had kept in his heart, on that day of his return, the whole world was against him. That's why the people who held him accountable to the people that were happy. To the people that tried to stop him, Minsu had taken all their lives with his hands. His heart hurt so much that his only way of releasing his sadness and anger is by trampling the happiness of others. While doing all of these, he's able to momentarily forget that only he was unfortunate. Minsu admits that he knew it was all wrong. He's aware that he is broken, but he didn't know what he was supposed to do, as he was not the same person he was before. He didn't understand why such a thing happened to him, knowing all he ever wanted was to be happy. He just wished that someone could have understood his sorrows, but in that nightmare of his, he had turned into a complete monster. That's why seeing his comrades dying right in front of his eyes made him even sadder. Yvonne, on the other hand, stated to him that he should bear the weight of the deeds he has done. And now, as if it had held his actions accountable, the people that tried to save him were the people he had tried to protect. His last comrades that have remembered him as someone ordinary has all now died, all because of him. Minsu can't somehow believe that such a thing could have ever happened to him, so he starts thinking of it as a nightmare. For him, it can't be possible for one person to bear this many misfortunes, right? But even Minsu couldn't answer the question himself. Yvonne then states that it must have really hurt seeing his loved ones die in front of him. The feeling of losing someone so valuable to you is something so unbearable to many, and even for a so-called heartless hero like Minsu, such a thing is as painful as it can be. Minsu shouts for an answer as he hopes that everything is just a nightmare, and by the next day he'll be back to normal, living a blissful life. But it seems like he already knew the answer that such a thing wouldn't be possible. Yvonne then offers to kill him if he wants to make the pain go away. As his sorrow is now beyond imagination, there is only one thing that Minsu is asking for, and it is for him to be saved from this never-ending misfortune and agony. Meanwhile, somewhere in the city, the hero of return is seen preparing some corns to pop, as he is about to witness a show he has been anticipating. On the other hand, back to the battlefield, Yvonne couldn't believe that even when Minsu was on the verge of his death, he was still able to maintain his composure. Minsu has now lost everything, from his family, friends, and now his comrades from the other world. He somehow looks like he's lost his mind as he mutters things by himself. That's why, as Yvonne saw that the ball of evil is at its weakest point, he immediately thought of taking advantage of the situation. While Minsu is currently in this pitiful state, Yvonne aims to end him discreetly with this last strike. Using his eyes familiar human bone spear, Yvonne plans to end all of this chaos once and for all. As it landed, it transformed into a group of walking cannibal bones. These said bones start to bite Minsu's flesh from every angle, but he couldn't care less about it as he already expected it from such a miserable world. At this point, Minsu couldn't think of anyone other than him who he could refer to as miserable. That's why, to release his sorrow and anger, Minsu has decided to use violence once again. If he is miserable, he will also make sure that everyone else is as well. Considering he is already alone, why not kill everyone already? After all, he couldn't get any sadder from this point forward, and doing such a thing doesn't change anything, as there's nothing left for him to worry about. That's why killing everyone and making them disappear wouldn't be as painful for someone who is already alone. As a result, in this world of the void, where there is no hero nor a demon king, for the first time in history, a demon king was born, and it's none other than the fallen hero, Minsu. As Minsu calls for a sword, he's now decided to be just like the ones he was fighting against before. Minsu is born again, not as a hero but as a demon king whom everyone should fear. He has now become stronger than ever, as his powers are now powered by extreme rage and evil. Even Yvonne couldn't believe that Minsu was able to acquire such power in an instant. The once hero who has followed the rule of the world has now given up his title and decided to become a monster that everyone should fear. At this point, Minsu is a greater disaster than ever. This isn't a realm of war anymore but an apocalypse. Knowing that only bad things will happen from now on, Yvonne tries to stop Minsu with all his might. However, when he thinks that he'll definitely win the fight, Minsu is able to kill him with just a flick of a finger. No one expected Yvonne would die in such a way, but it seems like Minsu has really evolved into something new and powerful. On the other hand, the hero of return gets very emotional as he sees Minsu transforming into a demon king, as he has always wanted. Now it's only a matter of time before we know what's next for Minsu in the world. The hero of glaciation has now officially died, which simply means that there aren't any old generations left. The Russian headquarters were also informed of the sad news and are now planning to prepare themselves for the coming catastrophic events. Now, the government is keeping its eyes on Minsu, who is now advancing in a straight line. Though his movements had gotten impeded due to the snow, it is estimated that it will soon reach the Chinese borders. As Minsu arrived at the battle place, within seconds, he was able to mince 200,000 soldiers to pieces. Despite the situation, those heroes that had once dominated an age all have received something. Faith was sealed together with despair that made allies into enemies. Hope was able to neutralize the weapon of mass destruction that would have led to the loss of many lives. Love had spread his scattering body into the atmosphere even till his last moment, and was able to momentarily hinder the footsteps of the Demon King. No, the only ones left are the Demon King, a broken clock, and the two heroes. The hero of return is seen crying his eyes out as he becomes emotional with how Minsu has ended up becoming. On the other hand, Jisung is seen brewing some tea for grandma. On the outskirts of Indonesia, the neighboring island bases up the hero of the spear, the returned hero whom people will now depend on. Is seen exercising and training. His arms are now healed, and he also thinks that he might be able to make use of them from a strategic standpoint. But his arms aren't really the problem. The real problem is that the weapon he was planning to use in fighting against Minsu has now disappeared. As previously said, if he doesn't have a spear made from the world of spears, it's impossible for him to swap into different spears. The Verdure warrior then assures Jungsu that they will retrieve the spear no matter what. Considering the government is also planning a massive retrieving operation, Jungsu, on the other hand, seems to be a little worried that they might get defeated along the way. The Verdure warrior then states to him that he shouldn't worry since he will not be going anyway. This made him confused, but she then explained that his role is to defeat the hero of the sword, so there was no point in him wasting his strength on anything else. All he has to do now is to train and be in the right condition, especially now after such a huge battle. She assures him that there are people who are willing to help them get through the situation, and that's why he should learn to trust those people himself. Meanwhile, back on Korea's mainland, a number of people are starting to see heroes as their lords, and before things get out of control, the reconstruction team bursts the brain of the cult's mastermind. With that being said, the relic retrieval mission is also about to start. 5 hours ago, at the Reconstruction Government Central Office, everyone was preparing themselves for the important mission. Of course, a mission wouldn't be a mission if it wasn't planned thoroughly. So before even jumping right into the fight, the whole organization decided to have a meeting. The meeting was led by the new head, named An Yeji. After the brief introduction, they immediately went into the proper meeting. As everyone knew, while the terrorists had overthrown South Korea, several battles happened. Among those, there were heroes that fought along the government side. The key point of this mission is to focus on retrieving the armaments of those heroes, including the spear that was forgotten and left behind when the hero of the revolt had escaped. Now the problem is that these armaments are being secured by the hero's faction, and the two heroes that currently remain in South Korea. That's why 5 hours from now, they will exhaust their entire remaining forces to retrieve the majority of these relics. In words alone, it would be an execution, but if they're going to die, they might as well die for the future. Now, they are planning to have at most 100 agents and armed forces with less than 1,000 to join the operation. It seems like the head has noticed that the soldiers have been stirred up due to the situation. The soldiers then explain that they are not, since from the start, they already knew that they will eventually die. But they start to question if they were to die and the relics were obtained, what would happen next? Would it be possible to wipe out the remaining heroes by just using these said relics? The head then tells everyone that the hero of the revolt will be the one responsible for fighting the heroes. All that the people need to do is believe in him no matter what. After all, the government doesn't have any other cards aside from him. So as much as possible, they will try everything to ensure that the hero will be ready for the big battle that's about to happen. Fast forward, despite the resistance from the hero faction, everyone is now trying their best to retrieve as many relics as possible. Some were at Gangnam, digging up some piles of debris, while others were at different locations. With that said, the relic retrieval mission that was triggered simultaneously has now happened quietly and discreetly. With all the digging and searching, one team was able to find the holy spear of the hero of the revolt. With that said, the mission seemed to be ending on a successful note, with the sacrifice of about 500. However, although some locations were safe to raid, in the province of Changwon, the military's operations were halted when one of the heroes appeared. The soldiers assigned in the said area were killed in an instant. Now the operation is about to turn sideways. About 15 minutes after the launch of the mission, the retaliation of those that claim to be the new owners of this land has begun. It seems like the people who are believers of the heroes have been given a sense of immortality. The faction leader who was shot in the head earlier turns out to be receiving the blood of the hero of vampirism. As a result, he is someone whom we can call immortal. It seems like the faction already predicted the whole mission, but the head doesn't get why the hero of swords doesn't make a move yet. One of the soldiers then states that the hero might still be on his way. So for now, the only thing they could do is clean up the rest then, for that is the proper obligation of those that have received salvation. On the other hand, the government reconstruction organization has already received good news about not being able to retrieve the shield. As a result, they decided to get out of the place immediately. The head also orders her team to make sure that the relics they were retrieved are delivered to the organization headquarters immediately, since it seems like the looks of constant incoming enforcement have restored the hero's faction's command system. At this point, the only weapon that they need to ensure securing is the spear. since if they lose all of them, then the existence of the Reconstruction government and the resistance forces might be lost as well. They kept losing all this time, and that's why no matter what, they must ensure that they at least fulfilled the main goal of their mission, which was to get the hero of the revolt weapon. They can't afford to turn back and run away again, since this will be their turning point as an organization. As a result, the head decided to ask for reinforcement from the citizens of the militia, which marks this event as the beginning of the all-out war. Tens of millions of citizens, soldiers filled with a sense of duty, even the country's infrastructure, including the lives of those careless heroes, everyone was robbed of things for the sake of the future. That's why today, the organization aims to seize it from those hero bastards. They must secure each weapon at all costs. With that said, another operation called Living Corpse will now begin. The government of the Republic of Korea had the capability to stop the rampaging of the hero, whether by policy or environment, but it was not those far-fetched solutions. Korea was truly able to stop the rampaging of the hero by using another hero. After the Gangso district destruction incident, the hero of sorcery appeared to stop him. With this appearance, the true nature of the hero was confirmed to be the teenagers that had gone missing within the past year. Among the teenagers that returned after being missing, they were all able to successfully identify the presumed heroes. The majority of the heroes that were found did not want their world to be destroyed. That's why they ended up deciding to go against the rampaging heroes, whether they were actively or passively supporting them. The problem was with the government that used this human resource. They did not deploy the heroes into the battlefield all at once. They ended up deploying the heroes one by one as if this was a coliseum. Some officials were angry at the thought of sending young teenagers into the field to fight all alone, knowing that they would die in the end. But no one can really do much about it, considering this was the plan proposed by the higher-ups to manage the risk. It seems like the higher-ups want to reduce not only the rampaging ones, but also the potential bombs known as heroes in the country. Many surprisingly agree with this plan, considering no one really knows if these cooperating kids won't go berserk a few years later. That's why by sending them off individually, the government can also remove one risk after another. As depressing as it may sound, this was the main goal of the hero deployment mission, which is also called the Coliseum. No one really cares if anyone approves or not, since this is something for the future. But the organization leader can't somehow find the justice of doing such a thing to young kids. The story after that is obvious. The heroes chosen to be the scapegoat lost their lives one by one. Even the leader's brother who went missing turned out to be a hero that was used as a sacrifice by the government. That's why the leader promised to do her best and fight for her country, and especially her brother. For years, ever since they were still children, Yeji and her brother have loved watching hero shows like Power Rangers. Her brother yearned so much to be a hero, but there were days when he was bullied for it. His big sister then comes into the scene to comfort him in the most sister way possible. That's why, after hearing his strong sister cry in front of him, he can't somehow contain his anger, as he will now be the hero brother he has always wanted to be. Even with third-degree burns all over his body, as well as inflammations festering above those wounds, it would really be difficult for him to distract his mind from the pain, let alone move around. However, despite this, the hero's brother would do anything for his sister. As a result, the doctor ended up giving him a high dosage of painkillers and antibiotics to help him somewhat escape the deadly pain. Now that they have arrived where the hero of martial arts is, it is his job to lure him away from the shield so that the government can retrieve it. Although it is so hard for his sister to send away her younger brother to his possible death, Yeji doesn't have any choice but to also obey orders. As her brother dashes off the helicopter, Yeji can't somehow help to stop her tears from falling as her brother says his thanks to her for waiting for him all this time. Now the hero of transformation is known to be an outdated name and an immature suit. Though he did not receive any expectations, he was one of the two heroes that rivaled the hero of the sword. Although he became paralyzed, he was the only hero that fought against the hero of the sword and survived, a hero who is unable to fight. It would be natural to pay one's respect and leave him to go peacefully. The doctors did suggest to Yeji that she can put her brother on life support. However, Yeji declined the offer, stating that her brother still had a duty to fulfill. That said, because he was that powerful, he was brought out into the battlefield once more. This time, not for anyone but his big sister. With that said, as he locks his eyes on the martial arts hero, he immediately rushes forward to him and sweeps him off in a dash. Using his acceleration mode, the martial arts hero got dizzy with how fast the hero of transformation is. As they continue to fight, both heroes showed their best modes in order to defeat one another. While they are fighting, the government officials who will be responsible for retrieving the shield are in place, waiting for the right time. While they wait, Yeji is quite worried for her brother's life as he might burn himself to death with that speed. But she can't do anything about it, but just pray things will turn out well. On the other hand, now that the hero of transformation has already caught the attention of the enemy, the government is now making its way towards the shield only to find out that the hero's faction has already laid out its defense around the shield. Although the military tried to kill the faction leader, but because of the vampire blood invested in him, he is someone that would be hard to kill. At this point, the reconstruction government team should already be concerned as the tide is not even anymore. It is said that there are many forms of pain in the world. One is the pain of being deeply cut by blades. Second, the pain of mangled flesh and broken bones by strikes. Third is the pain that spreads throughout the body from the holes torn open by bullets. And the pain that rises from the escaping breath as the rope tightens. All this pain is something that everyone in this void world is currently experiencing. Even the two heroes of good and of bad who are fighting right now are also feeling much pain themselves. As the fight intensifies, both of the heroes try their best, but it seems like the hero of transformation has got the lead. However, when he was already on the verge of winning, he experienced the worst pain anyone could ever feel as his flesh melted and scorched, as blood evaporated and left a foul stench. The hero of transformation has now caught on fire. He's now experiencing the pain that emits as the body burns and melts away. The hero of transformation just cries in despair as the scorching pain lingers through his body. As he melts away, the martial arts hero starts to wonder if the capabilities of the hero of transformation, instant acceleration, exceeds his all because a huge risk accompanies it. But he couldn't care much about it. As he moves closer to him, a number of government officials enter the scene to buy the hero of transformation some time. As they try to fight the martial arts hero, Yahello uses a fire extinguisher to stop her brother from burning. The hero of transformation is shocked to see his sister out on the battlefield. Yahello then explains that she wants to fight with him one last time. Although she already knows how much her brother hates her, she can't do anything since this is their mission. At least in the end, they fought together as siblings, so no matter what happened, at least they were together at the very last moment. As Yahello steps in when the martial arts hero is about to attack them, her brother then remembers something from their childhood. He reminisces about the moment his sister had taken a hit for him. She had stayed his main inspiration and will always be. As he remembered the promise he made that day of protecting his sister at least once, before the martial arts hero could even land a hit at her, the hero of transformation stepped in, declaring the fight wasn't over yet. Alright ladies and gentlemen, that does it for today's script. Thank you so much for watching. We hope you've enjoyed our content thus far. Have a wonderful time and until we meet again. Adios.